Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 184. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my son, Chris Raygun. Chris, how are you today, my friend? Good to see you. Happy New Year to you.
Yeah. Happy New Year. I'm doing good. I'm in a new little setup, which at this point is like every single like 3 weeks. I'm in a
I know
new
you're
place.
like constantly in a new place.
I think in 3 weeks I'll be in like an Eddie Murphy haunted mansion type setup, I think.
Sure.
For no reason. Then maybe I'll go into the forest.
You're like one of those actors that repeatedly appeared on canceled sitcoms. And so we just keep finding you in different places. Well, it's good to see you. Welcome back. And Dustin Furman, executive producer of Last Stand, welcome. It's honestly less exciting to see you just because I've talked to you and seen you throughout the break more often. So it would have more oomph for me if that weren't the case. But unfortunately for you,
I was going to say I was glad to see you, but I'm going to take that back. But I'm doing great. Just fine. We had a nice break and we didn't really.
Oh, you had a break?
I mean, with Last Stand, we don't take any breaks throughout the year, and so Colin's laughing. Oh, it took a break. You signed up for being a developer, writing all kinds of shit. Come on.
I know. I'm. It's a good problem to have. I'm glad that we got time to take time off. I was also glad that you and I were on the same page mentally as to saying, why can't we carve out these times actually more often? Because all it requires is planning. And then we crunch. I mean, that's just the nature. We have to crunch a little bit. But then you get this time off. But yeah, you're right. My vacation was fine, but there was no time off really. But that was my own fault. First of all, I just kept doing things for Last Stand. But I also wrote the entire script for one game. And then I wrote a whole treatment for the second game, the role-playing game, which we've now handed off to the writer that we hired, who we'll talk about soon. So I was just... Actually, yeah, it's covered. I don't know if it's coming through on my. I don't think it will, but yeah, like the Last of Us poster over here, and there's more here. It's like a whole bulletin board of the whole flow and layout of the game, which is why it's covered up. So yeah, it was a busy vacation, but very fruitful, and like you said, it's a good problem to have, to be busy. I think is.
I wasn't busy.
Well,
I just I went to IKEA. That was a pretty big outing here for the Furmans, and I got home because we bought a new like entertainment console, and then I opened it and it was white, like a bright white entertainment console. I was like, this is not what I thought I was getting. So that involved another trip back to IKEA, which was just dreadful, quite frankly. But we got it all sorted out and I feel refreshed. You know, I don't know. I'm ready to get back into the grind. I mean, we have been, like, Duke came out this week, so we've been in full swing production, also dealing with some other stuff we're going to talk about in a little bit, but it feels good to be back in, like, ready to spring into action. I'm like excited to be back.
Yeah, I'm feeling good too. I feel like this is going to be a long, meaty, girthy, show. Chris, what did you do over the holidays? What did you keep busy with? Were you with family and friends? Did you stay warm?
Yeah, I was with family. Some family came over, and some family from Virginia actually. Came up for New Year's after making sure everybody was, negative. It was a lot smaller. It was a lot smaller of a gathering than we usually have. Our family usually has this big gathering every single New Year, except last year everything was through Zoom, and this year my parents were like, "We're not doing that again. There's vaccines, and we're gonna have some people over as long as they're okay." And it was cool. I had like these smaller. I don't know what to call them. They're smaller cousins. I think to call them nieces and nephews, but they're not technically.
That's the same thing in my family. I have many nieces and nephews. No, they're not nieces and nephews. They're cousins, but they feel like it because they're like 10 years younger than me.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's like, it's a little weird, but I was showing them all sorts of stuff. I showed them Astro's Playroom, and because they don't have PlayStations, and I was just showing them all the crazy stuff from the new machines. I was showing them some VR stuff. The little ones really took a liking to Beat Saber, so that was really cool. It was just fun. And also I was just building this studio space and painting and getting internet wired through here and finding a way to organize it so it looks good.
Yeah, where are you? Are you in is this your home, or is this
just a separate part of the home.
Cool.
It's an entire.
Well, I asked only because like Maddie works off site, so I didn't know if you were like borrowing. Because I can't get down with that at all. I actually want to wring Maddie's neck about that because it's just it's so wasteful. He could take that rent and put it into a mortgage in a place he can own, but that's his.
So it's not a separate place, but it's the layout was kind of here already, but we had to put up some stuff. We had to do some new wiring, new like painting, new flooring and everything. And it's just a tricky situation trying to get everything looking good from every angle, because when I film videos, I'm filming from that direction looking this way. So this has to look good. That has to look good. It was a whole clusterfuck, but I think we got it looking good. I think it looks pretty solid for right now.
Yeah, we'll see how it looks in 2 or 3 weeks and where you are at that point.
Mm-hmm.
As far as my place, Dustin told me that I finally should just put a light on behind me.
Yeah.
So, because I'm the exact opposite. I'm like, I don't care about any of this. This is just my office. But the reality is people can see the color of the wall back here is different. It's blue now. I had work done here, custom shelving put in our loft area. We're making like a game space, which is going to be dope. And then you can only see the bottom one of 2 long custom shelves for my G.I. Joes that I got put in behind me. However, the guy that I'm working with took the glass away from them today because we're getting new glass put in. And then we're getting more shelving put in back here. Probably paint this place. So there's a lot going on right now. But needless to say, we all know the shot doesn't look right? It's just
we need a second light. Yeah,
we're gonna get the second light. I like that we can see here Slime, Mega Man helmet, and Rush up here, Dr. Wily. So there's some good things back there, but we'll have proper shelving and all that. I guess I have to kind of start to worry about that at some point. All right. Originally I was gonna be like, I can put the bulletin board back there of like the things I'm working on. And then I'm like, there'll just be massive spoilers of all of our games behind us every week. And then you have to blur it out and then it'll look fucking ridiculous, of course.
Ooh.
Okay. There's a lot to get into.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure I remember how to do this. So we're going to ease into it by just reminding everyone we're supported on Patreon. Patreon.com/laststandmedia. Thank you for making 2021 our most successful year ever. Rolling into 2022, we're still the biggest games related Patreon in the world. Patreon.com/laststandmedia. So thank you so much for your love, kindness, and support. You can sign up for as little as $1, $2, $5 a month, all sorts of different perks. Really do appreciate it. I'm going to let Nathan Densley sell it. He wrote in and said, "Hey, gooey boys." I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, no, me neither.
Let me shill for y'all a couple seconds. Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is incredible. Getting it on date, it's published and ad-free is wonderful. Plenty of value for your $1, but then you add in all those sweet, sweet Sacred Symbols Plus episodes to your listening library. Worth it. Colin's interviews have been stellar. The latest with Vincent Gennito is interesting, provocative, soul-searching, and all I want is more. And to that, we add mailbags, Hoag's Law appearances, spoiler cast reviews, and deep dives and whatever is happening. Times are tough, I know. But if you can and when you can, I suggest becoming a patron. God knows these guys are making some money, but in my opinion, they're earning every penny. Thanks for the content, team. Yes, of course, we are paid for our work, but we very much appreciate your kindness and support. It's the only reason we can do this. We pay everyone well. We pay everyone fairly. We treat all of our vendors fairly. We have a great team of freelancers, and everything is on the up and up. We're able to make investments, clearly not in my set, but in other places around the company. So we really do appreciate your kindness, your generosity, and your support over there. Sacred Symbols Plus, of course, is our twice weekly Patreon exclusive episode of the show. Deep dives. I did one with Vincent Gennito, the first time he's talked on the record since 2017. He, of course, was quote unquote Me Too'd out of the industry. And people have that episode has completely blown up. But you know what episode blew up over the holidays? Was an episode I did with a man named William Holbert, who's a 73-year-old guy who plays games and has been playing games since 1972. And he tells his story about how he discovered them and the whole trail of his history with them. And it's awesome. It was an awesome conversation. People loved it. So we're going to have him back soon. We're going to have Vince back, I think, as well, to talk about fighting games soon. I have conversations coming up about China and games with someone from the Rand Corporation think tank. I have an episode coming up about Gran Turismo 7 with a popular YouTuber. We have an episode coming up about Christianity and video games, which I'm really excited about, with someone who runs a popular Christian games website. So lots of cool stuff coming up. Oh, I'm talking to the people, and we're going to talk about the story in a little bit, the people that are kind of at the head of the Activision labor dispute. We're going to have an episode with them. So, guys, I'm doing the work. Come join us on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. By the way, I just wanted to read this out from Kirk because this has become such a controversy. He says, hey guys, when Colin deletes things in the doc, the edits are shown when you click last edit up top. He could also just control Z to undo, but I have to say I'm still shocked it's the same doc. You guys could have shared a folder with a new doc at the top every week like I do and others do with our shows. Colin, you are a podcasting master, but also a podcasting monster. Take care, Sacred Sims. He's referring to the fact that I just delete and paste over our document every week with new notes. But if they're in their history, then why do they need to be in separate documents? I mean, you've just outwitted yourself, Kirk. And therefore, the case is closed.
I don't think this is nearly as big of a deal as while we're recording like a Sacred Symbols Plus episode, you're like just like erasing the questions. That to me is like a lot more disruptive and confusing than just like, hey, we're done with the episode. I do the same thing with my scripts. You know, like I just sort of like, hey, I'm done with the video. This is the document I have, whatever.
I don't. What do people want us to sell them as NFTs? We could shit.
Oh,
God damn it.
There you go.
Now I just convinced myself that we should do. I'm only kidding. I would never do that.
Yeah. You have to draw a really terrible monkey holding one of our scripts for the show.
We'll get to this.
I
print
hate
the
those
scripts, sign them, new Patreon tier.
That's well, we should bring back, people have wanted us to bring back the higher tiers on Patreon. I actually got rid of them. It cost us money to do it, but I was like, we should just, I wanted to make sure it's like maximally valuable, you know?
Right.
We're working on that this year, I think. Dustin, let's talk about something quick with merch though.
Yeah.
We usually sell merch. We've been pimping. We've had like 3 waves, I think, of merch now with Colin's Last Stand / Last Stand Media. And our most recent wave has been very popular, high quality goods, American made, all of the rest. But we are pulling the plug on that project. We've had a good relationship with the people we've been working with. However, we've decided that we are going to bring things in-house and do it ourselves. So we're going to run our own merch shop with stuffing envelopes and doing all of it from the get-go. This is going to allow us to do a few things. One of the problems we had with our old merch store, and I'll let Dustin expand on this, is not the quality, which was extraordinarily high, but just the lack of communication, the lack of speed. It's print on demand. It's just out of our control. And people, I think, understand that I run a very tight operation when it comes to customer service. We run a very loose, decentralized company where people do what they want. But when it comes to the customer, we are laser focused. And anyone who's written to Patreon will know that because I answer your messages myself. And I send you the link to get to Discord. And I shoot your messages to Patreon to see if they're looking into a problem. And I'm doing that myself. And I don't want to deal with companies that won't give the same customer service to our customers. And the only people that will do that reliably that's us. So we're shutting down the merch store. You won't be able to buy it by the time you're hearing this anymore. When it comes back, it's going to be very high quality. It's going to be American made. It's going to be dynamic. There's going to be a really cool way for you to interact with us, offer up your products. If you're an artisan, if you're an artist or something, you can say like, hey, I want to make a Last Stand, blah. I want to make a Sacred Symbols, and we can say like, cool, let's make money together. Let's get it up on the store and see what people's interested in. We, of course, have done this in the past with like the wooden emblem that's behind Dustin, which was, these are custom made items from an artist, right? The Sacred Symbols, stained glass was another example. My sister's earrings are another example. So we're really excited about being able to just offer all those things. And here's the best news. Prices are going to go way down. So, and the quality is going to stay the exact same. Yeah. So, Dustin, do you want to expand on that at all? Do you think I kind of touched on everything?
The most important detail that I want people to know is that if you currently have an order with the merch shop, it will be fulfilled. So that shop, even though you won't be able to order stuff, it will remain open to handle any final customer service related things and get those final orders out. So I just didn't want anyone to panic if you spend a decent amount and you're still waiting on that order. It is coming. Like you've most likely gotten an email. There has been shipping delays from both product related stuff and COVID related staffing shortages with the merch people. So don't fret if your order is not here yet. It will still come. But yeah, I just want to echo what Colin's saying is that what's so exciting, and not that we didn't have the ability to do this before, but we really are going to be able to do whatever we want. And I don't want to put out too many teasers, but I'm looking at enamel pins of our logos and all kinds of really cool products that I think you guys will like, and we'll be able to sell them at I feel like a really reasonable price. And it's cool. The taking it in, Colin, I think what you said to me when we were discussing this just is that this is kind of our way. We're a DIY company, and we've always been that way. So it makes sense that this is the next evolution of how we do our merchandise, which clearly you guys are really into and shown us this past year. So we want to do it even better.
Yeah. And I think, the buck stops with me. I own this company. I run this company. So I'm sorry to anyone that was ill communicated with, who got a late product or whatever. That's my fault, ultimately. And with our control, inside, we will, Micah's going to run this. Micah loves Etsy and things like that. So we're going to have like a cool boutique-ish feel. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. And I'm really excited about it. And like I said, the prices are going to be cheaper than ever. The quality is going to be very high. Lots of cool products. And so we appreciate your patience on that. We thank you. We thank, of course, our old partner, but we just want to do it ourselves now. It's just the only way to control everything and make sure it's up to our quality. While we're as goofy as we are on this show, the reality is that we have many thousands of customers that are very satisfied because we treat them well. And I'm not gonna mess with that in any way. So yes, thank you for that. Thank you, Dustin, of course, for doing all this, and for, of course, reminding me that yes, everyone's products will indeed go out and everything will be fine. But right now you can't buy anything. We'll have more to say about that soon, though. Next month, I would say. Okay, let's see. What else is there to say? I don't know. Oh, all right. Let's flex our legs with some just horrifying questions from the audience before we get into, in earnest, a bunch of different news that we have to get into as we get into Sacred Symbols. Sergio DeVivo wrote into us, or DeVivo. This is hard. I wanted to read this one because when it's like when you're at a fork in the road and you choose one fork or the other. It's like I can't choose. The answer to this question is no. And here's what he asks. He says, would you rather see your parents have sex or have your parents watch you have sex? Now, I thought about this earnestly because we get a lot of these ridiculous questions. And I'm like, okay, what's the answer? And the answer is no. No.
Yeah. I think that's I think that's the only correct one.
Yeah.
That is the answer.
I have a thought behind this, but maybe I'm thinking too deeply.
Oh dear.
Probably.
Deeply. I'm thinking deeply about this, is that, if your parents watch you have sex, then, and if let's say you're a married man like me, I feel like that may permanently taint your sex life going forward, because you're always going to think about that time that your parents watched. And as scarring as it may be, watching your parents have sex, it's going to be scarring, no doubt. But I think that your own sex life will remain pristine. Unless depending on the situation with your parents, I guess that could fuck you up too.
I mean, that's the thing, is that I just don't think there's any way forward.
Yeah.
It's the
I would
just
swan dive into a shallow pool at that point. I'm just like, I had a good run, I think, before this choice was laid before me.
Yeah.
I'm imagining one of the dads that's listening to Sacred Symbols, like quickly fumbling with the radio right now, like, oh, like trying to change the car, like wrecking the car.
The meme where it's the guy at the fork in the road, and one is like very pristine, one path, and the other's like the dark castle. This is to me like both of them in the dark castle.
Right.
Or just like
Definitely.
Oblivion, like a black hole, like the event horizon.
Yeah. It's absolute hell.
Oh my God. Thank you, Sergio. You're waking us up. Let's keep going. Daniel the Awesome wrote in and said, what is up, my slitterheads? Now, I told you how I feel about that.
Oh my God.
Since you gentlemen are the arbiters of bathroom etiquette, I wanted to run this one by you. My wife thinks it's disgusting, but I think I'm just being efficient. When I have to blow my nose, I don't use a tissue. I go straight to the sink, blow my snot directly into my hand.
Oh.
and then just wash everything down the drain. If I use tissues, it's a 2 to 3 tissue job due to my facial hair, and I don't have that time or money for that. Come on. So what do you think?
What kind of facial hair do you have? What are you, a Yeti? What are you
I finally
talking
tell my
about?
wife that she was wrong about something. Thanks for your time and Happy New Year. Chris, here's the thing. I was like, okay. My wife, he's like, I'm just being efficient. I go to blow my nose. I don't use a tissue. I go straight to the sink. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I thought what he was going to say was he blows my snot directly into the sink.
Right.
Why are you using your hand if you're going to the sink? Why? You could just blow it in your hand and then walk to the sink. That's the peculiar thing about all of this. It just doesn't make any sense.
Can you projectile? Is that possible? Can people just projectile
snot rocket?
Snot rockets, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I don't think I've ever done that.
Hold one nostril and just blow.
I don't think I've ever even thought to do that.
Oh my God.
I've been using tissues because that's what they're for.
Or you can use a tissue and still blow. You could. I can't believe I'm even having to explain this. I don't even know I don't even know what to say about that.
I'm sorry, I didn't grow up a slovenly ape, snot rocketing all over the place. Listen, here's what I'm saying. The tissue exists for a reason, almost solely for that reason. Sure, you can cry into it, I guess, but you have a sleeve for that, really.
Or
Like, there's nothing necessarily unsanitary about like crying on a sleeve, you know. But like, why? I just don't understand. Why are you so opposed to tissues? You know, I understand this mentality if you're like in the shower or something. If you're in the shower, right. You're like, I got to blow my nose. All right, whatever. Yeah. You're already cleaning yourself off anyway. Yeah. But if you're in the middle of like a funeral or something, or a business meeting, and you're like, hold on, guys. And then you walk to the sink. It's gross, man. You're a gross person.
Yeah,
sorry.
I was gonna say that I feel like the tissue was designed to fix this lingering problem, which was the handkerchief, which right. is, I guess, something. It's better than your hand, but we've come out of the cave, Daniel, and you have the nerve to call us slitterheads. Thank you for writing in.
I gotta change that name, man. I really hate it.
I do too. I don't like it at all. No. Peter Epperson wrote in and said, hey, Colin, Chris, and Dustin, longtime listener, first time writing in. The other night I was video chatting with my girlfriend and she had herself a bowl of chicken nuggets. Not only did she place them in a bowl, but she poured barbecue sauce over the top of them and proceeded to eat them using a fork. My question is this, is she a sociopath for making chicken barbecue nugget soup? This isn't going to impact my staying with her, but at least I'll know. Thank you for your expertise and all the content. Keep porking that poultry. See, I'm more disturbed by the bowl. I mean, I know that almost seems like the MacGuffin in the story, but indeed, I'm more disturbed by the bowl. Why are you putting chicken nuggets in a bowl? I don't mind that you're pouring stuff on top of them. You're using a fork. I mean, that's weird. This is the whole bone in, bone out kind of parallel argument. I don't even want to get into it. But the bowl is actually what disturbed me here. But Peter, I think this is nothing for you to worry about.
Yeah. I don't see anything wrong with this at all, to be honest. Like, this to me seems like maybe she didn't have a plate. Maybe she was like not the laundry. The dishes were just sort of in such a way that the bowl was the most convenient thing.
Sure. Could be.
Here's the thing. If it's a bowl and you're filling the bowl with sauce, that's another thing. That's what he's making it sound like, but that sounds to me like an exaggeration on his part. You know, the whole chicken nugget soup thing.
Yeah.
This just seems like somebody putting sauce on their nuggets. What, is this a police state?
Peter, at least it's not Daniel, because he would take the chicken nuggets, put them in his hand, and then pour the barbecue sauce onto the nuggets on his hand.
He's just being efficient.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. It's just efficiency. Who has time for that?
Oh, man.
Thank you for writing it, Peter. All right, let's get into the gaming information that people actually listen to the show for, I think.
Yeah,
I don't really know why you listen to the show, to be honest. There's a lot of smaller items I wanted to get into. Then, of course, we'll get into what we've been playing over the holiday break. Then we'll get into the bigger pieces of news. But let's start with this Bloomberg article written by Jason Schreier, published Monday morning right after the break, called "The Next Video Game from BioShock's Creators in Development Hell." This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Sacred Symbols listeners can get 10% off their first month of sessions at betterhelp.com/symbols. It's 2022 now. The calendar-turning distractions are behind us. Christmas and New Year's aren't lingering. Extended family has retreated, thankfully. The kids are back in school, and you are back to your routine. So now it's time to focus on you again. You are your most important asset after all, and without you, well, what is there? A great way to focus on yourself, what ails you, what's on your mind, what's burdening you, is therapy. And BetterHelp is an awesome option to try therapy for yourself. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. All of this is key because BetterHelp is a truly modern and convenient solution to, say, having to drive 20 or 30 minutes to an office, wait in a waiting room, talk for a bit, and then go on your way. It can be easier than that, and BetterHelp makes it easier than that. I'm a true believer in therapy. It's useful for millions and millions of people around the world. And I think BetterHelp will prove beneficial to so many of you out there who simply need to talk to someone with knowledge and expertise about trials and tribulations in your life. Relationships, trouble at work, problems with motivation or focus, and so much more. All of these issues are human issues, and there's nothing wrong with struggling with life. What's important is licking your wounds only briefly, and then seeking the help you need. And BetterHelp can take care of you when it comes to the latter. To try BetterHelp's customized online therapy and begin communicating with the therapist in 48 hours or less, go to betterhelp.com/symbols. That's BetterHelp.com/SYMBOLS and begin your journey today. Again, that's betterhelp.com/symbols for online therapy via phone, video, or even text. Jason Vanover wrote into us on Patreon, says this. Welcome back, gentlemen. Curious to get your guys' take on Bloomberg's Ken Levine story. While not necessarily an outright hit piece, I'm incredibly confused as to the nature or reason behind the article. As someone who's followed Levine dating back to 2007, nothing in the story was, at least to me, remotely surprising or, to borrow a phrase from Chris, outright baffling. Maybe I'm alone here, but after finishing Schreier's piece, I kind of thought to myself, yeah, that's about right, and? I mean, is there really anyone out there familiar enough with Levine to have read that article who didn't already assume he was probably somewhat difficult to work with? Isn't it kind of common knowledge or assume that working for or alongside incredibly respected auteurs such as Levine is likely demanding and high stress? Just not entirely sure what the report set out to accomplish, and if it spoke to any of you, considering I know all three of you appreciate Bioshock and Levine himself. Colin, as someone who practiced long-form gaming journalism and knows Ken personally, can you give us some of that Moriarty insight we all appreciate here? Am I alone in wondering what the purpose of the story is? Yeah, this was a bad story, and what I think. And I try to give Jason his credit because sometimes he writes good stories, but obviously he writes with an agenda in mind. And this story didn't, I think, go the way he thought it was going to go. You can tell that this was going to be his big, like, Monday morning, new after the holiday push. It published at 10 a.m. He was ready to go. He was probably so excited. And I can also tell you that people behind the scenes knew that this story was in the works for months because he's been talking to people. And the more people you talk to, the more it gets around that people are trying to write a story about Ken Levine. And so it was known both to Ken and to people around him and to me and other journalists that this story was going to eventually drop. And it was nothing. I mean, it was less than what I even thought it was. I reached out to Ken that day just to see what he was doing, and we spoke briefly. But I would argue, I don't want to say too much. Ken's my friend. Ken's a personal friend. I'm obviously biased towards him, completely. So I probably should remove myself, but I just had a problem at the very start. Like, I don't think the game's in development hell. And just because a game is taking a long time doesn't mean that it's in development hell. That term means a specific thing where a game is stuck. It's not unable to get out. Think Beyond Good and Evil 2 or Skull and Bones. We don't even have the game's name. It's not even been announced. The game can't be in development hell because the game is just restarting or has been restarted in the past, right? And just kind of coming forth with new ideas and new iterations. Ken Levine is an auteur. And people might not like that. But it's not new publicly that he's difficult to work for. I mean, everyone knows behind the scenes that Ken is demanding to work for. But there have been stories written like this before. So I just felt like there was nothing here, and it means nothing. Ken Levine's game's going to come out. And the idea that this game is just this disastrous mishmash of people and whatever is just, it's not going to bear out. I'm telling you. And that's why Take-Two and Strauss-Zelnick are allowing it to be made. Hint.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, I read a little bit of it, and I felt a little confused by it because I think I was sort of where you were, where I read this headline and I assumed more was going to be brought up. Like I thought it was going to be a lot bigger than it ended up being, and I kind of read through it, and I just thought the main complaint is that he's hard to work with. Is literally the only thing that was really brought up in the article. And like you said, development hell doesn't necessarily mean what that means. Like there are plenty of games that were like restarted, publicly announced, the misattribution of that label or that term is very confusing, especially coming from somebody like Jason Schreier. I thought that was a little confusing. And I don't know, it's just kind of, I felt nothing after reading it. I thought I didn't even feel defensive in the same way that I thought I would, because I like Ken Levine. I don't know anything about him, but like I respect him a lot, and I respect BioShock and BioShock Infinite a great deal. It's just some of my favorite games ever. So I thought I was going to feel a lot more defensive, but instead I just sort of read through it and I was like, oh, this isn't even really that big of a deal at all. And it felt confusing that it was even written about, because it just seemed, again, like common knowledge to anybody who would even be paying attention to a story like this in the first place. It's just felt awkward.
Yeah, I agree. Just because we knew it. I'm looking at the story now, and it says on February 18th, 2014, Levine gathered the Irrational Game staff in the kitchen of their Massachusetts office, blah, blah, blah. And we know all this. This story was told years ago. Like, I don't know why this is being presented as a new thing. Yes, much of Irrational was laid off. Yes, he kept a small team under Take-Two. That's why I was saying, remember when I broke the news about the new BioShock game late last year, which is not being made by Ken Levine, people were like, oh, Colin said that Ken Levine's game is being published by Take-Two. And I'm like, yes, that we know that. They own Ghost Story games. I just feel like sometimes people don't even know what they're talking about. But you're right. It's weird with Jason Schreier specifically using that term, because I feel like we know what that term means, and churning new ideas is not development hell. Development hell is just trying to get something out and it not working. And it's obvious that Take-Two wanted to keep Levine and a small team and allowed him to iterate and reiterate. And the game, at the scope of what they're making, is much larger than the team that they have. It's going to take time. That's the trade-off. I think that's great. Isn't everyone always saying that there's too much work and people are too difficult and there's too much crunch and stuff? And now Ken Levine has a team, a stable team for years that is making something, and they're like, well, no, we don't want that either. It's like, okay,
that's development hell.
Yeah. Dustin, what do you think?
The only two main points that I really have about this is that, first of all, in Jason's article, the most hilarious part to me is there's a bar graph where it says the waiting game, and it has all these games listed like BioShock Infinite, Halo Infinite, Red Dead, whatever, and how long they take to make. And then it shows Untitled Ghost Story Game at 7.5 at the very bottom. Like, this is the pinnacle of how long a game has ever taken to make. It's like you didn't include Last Guardian on that list. You didn't include Final Fantasy 15, stuff like that. Like, it's so obvious of only presenting points of data that are relevant to the point you're trying to make. And I get that, but it just felt weird. Weird bar graph in the article. The second thing is just talking about working for an auteur, is that this is just, I don't know. You guys said this also, but it's just so obvious. And it's so weird to me. I don't know, maybe the times are changing, whatever, but you think about how people feel about Steve Jobs and how highly spoken of him he was, all the amazing things he did. And anyone who's read the Walter Isaacson biography knows that he was a fucking freak and an asshole that probably, like, seriously would not survive. I don't know if Steve Jobs would still be working at Apple today if people were working under him and then told their stories.
Oh, yeah. And, no way.
Yeah. And you think about people like Kubrick, like Stanley Kubrick, one of the best film directors of all time. There are horror stories, people scarred for life from working for him.
Yeah, James Cameron's the same thing. We just did Aliens on Knockback, which goes up soon, I think, and he's the same kind of guy like that.
Right.
I feel like I would be in rapture to a demanding person like that. Like, I don't get it. You know, to me, I'm like,
Sure.
this guy wants it to be perfect, right? Oh, damn.
Well,
damn it.
Yeah, it's the same thing with a lot of these people too. Bill Gates and
Yeah.
plenty of people. There's so many stories about Bill Gates screaming at people like in meetings, like, "You're idiots! What are you doing?"
And
I love that.
I've heard off the record from a firsthand source that this is the exact same case to work for Hideo Kojima to a T, maybe worse. I don't know. But I've heard stories specifically about Kojima from people that have worked directly in contact with him, and this is the exact same type of thing. And I just feel like, yeah, if you sign up to work for a guy like an Artur or whatever, it's going to be really hard. It's probably going to be one of the hardest things you've ever done in your life. But imagine having your name on a game like BioShock, one of the greatest games of all time.
Exactly. People would kill
what you get, what you put in, and who you work for. So,
I'll say this. This is what I in part said to Ken, and I'll say it publicly because it's how I feel, which is Jason Schreier's never made anything truly great. So what kind of insight would he have into making something truly great? I don't know. Who am I going to trust on the process? The man who made something truly great, or a journalist? And it's fine to be critical on the outside, but I'd have a pretty big dick if I made BioShock.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd have a pretty big dick if I made Metal Gear Solid. You know?
Yeah.
And if my name was intrinsically linked to those, then I would have my hands all over them too. And I don't know what people expect. The article almost expected it's like Ken Levine owes someone something. That's kind of what at the end I was like, what is this article about? Yeah, they laid people off. Yeah, he's not working quickly enough and not maybe utilizing the talent that is there to make the games they want to make. Whatever. I don't know what claims they're making, but it was a strange article.
Yeah.
So whatever. I think we'll hopefully do something with Ken later this year. All right. Few quick things we can get through here. Just wanted to note, interesting story over at IGN. They found in the SaGa the SaGa investor Q&A from December that was published during the holidays for the calendar year for SaGa, that Sonic Frontiers, which we saw at the Game Awards as this disturbing looking Sonic game, and the fact that it actually looks maybe fun, although confusing, was originally supposed to come out this year. And I thought that was interesting for the 30th anniversary of Sonic. And for anyone that thought it was peculiar that SaGa didn't do anything for the Sonic 30th anniversary, which was notable to some, of note, like a real game. This is why. So I just wanted to point that out. I also especially wanted to ask you about this. I don't know if you got a chance to read it. It is expansive, but Chris over at Game Informer, we were talking about Game Informer clumsily teasing some Bully 2 thing. We thought that maybe they had insight. I was saying maybe it's going to be a cover article or a cover, famous Game Informer cover reveal, but it wasn't that. On December 30th, late last year, they published a lengthy expose called "The Version of Bully 2 You'll Never Get to Play." Within, they talk about a game at Rockstar New England that was going to be the sequel to Bully. I'm wondering what you think of that, Chris, as someone who is a fan. It looks like it almost happened. This version of it will never come out, and it's unclear if it will see the light of day in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame. It's always a shame when these things just sort of die in the womb like this. But I mean, this is. I was really bummed to see this because I really thought, like, in the back of my head, it's like, oh, maybe that could happen again. I think it would be so cool to see a game like this in like the modern day. I think it'd be so cool to see Rockstar do something like this in an era where I feel like it would be a lot more punchy and a lot more ballsy, quite frankly, than it was when they did it the first time. Bully kind of seemed like a step down from Grand Theft Auto in a lot of ways when you consider how brazen Rockstar is as a company and how unafraid they were of doing like whatever they wanted. Like, hey, here's San Andreas, here's Vice City, here's all these crazy Grand Theft Auto games. You can kill people and you can kill hookers and you can steal people's cars, run them over. Mayhem, absolute mayhem. And also here's you can bully people at school. Yeah, it's like a massive step down when you think about it in that term. But now I feel like it would almost be the opposite, where we're so used to these games and combat and violence is almost intrinsically the way that we interact with the overwhelming majority of video games now, even stuff that's relatively simple like turn-based RPGs and stuff. It's all kind of framed around the lens of violence and combat. And now that subject of bullying is a lot more, I feel like it's a lot more taboo than it was.
Oh yeah, it's dramatic these days, because I think my sisters who are teachers tell me that, you know, like social media bullying and like digital bullying is a problem, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So, and I get that would kind of be difficult to convey in a game. It would almost be a modern version of something we already saw that doesn't technically exist in the same way. So I can understand why it might be hard to formulate the plan for this kind of thing and make it modern and relevant in a way that's also engaging in the same way that the first one was. But I can't help but be bummed by this. You know, I hope that we get one someday, because I do think it would be really, really cool. I think it'd be really, really ballsy. I think it'd be really interesting. But, you know, what they were talking about seemed kind of whatever anyway. So I didn't see anything in this article that was like, oh, I hope we wish we got that. You know, nothing really grabbed me in that sense. But
yeah,
I do think the pure premise of a Bully 2 is exciting, and I think in the right hands it could be really, really cool, and I'll keep pulling for it. I'll keep trying to will it into existence. Don't worry, I'm on it.
Well,
me,
you
not them.
Well, you have a lot of that sacred energy, that mystical energy.
I
do. Well, shout out to Blake Hester at Game Informer, who did a real piece of journalism.
Colin, here's the thing though. I had to comment briefly about this, the guy that wrote this.
Please.
On the first gaming podcast I did, we had a segment called You Done Fucked Up. And we gave an award every week to someone who done fucked up.
Yeah.
This is the guy that did the tease that said news story coming to you soon.
Well, that's what I was saying at the top was like that it ended. So you think that's more devastating than I was letting on?
I just think, why would you do that? Why would you tease your story by, I don't know, maybe he just didn't think that people would gather that having the logo like that with 2 would make people think that you were teasing at an actual Bully 2. I don't know. Not good.
Yeah, it was. That's why I think he deleted it, because it was stupid. But I also people on the internet annoy me, just creators, a lot, because they can't just shut the fuck up and wait until they have something to show. I get really annoyed when someone announces like, we're going to have a Kickstarter launching in 2 weeks. It's like, why are you telling me that? Launch the Kickstarter and announce it. So you have like an actionable thing to do. You demand a person's attention one time. People always feel the need to like tease, because someone tweeted to us, which I thought was funny, when I put up the Vincent Gennito conversation. Someone was like, Colin just dropping massive heat without saying a word or something like that. And they got a bunch of likes. And I was like, yeah, because that's fun. So it would have been more cool for you to have dropped the Bully 2 thing. But nonetheless, it's better than most of the shit being written in the industry right now.
Yeah.
Just a quick note, Ubisoft's subscription service, Ubisoft Plus, is coming to Xbox One and Xbox Series X. It's separate from Game Pass. I think some people were confused about this at first, that it was going to be somehow folded in, which I think was more akin to what EA did with Game Pass. This is separate, but it will not, at least immediately, be available on PS4 and PS5. Sammy, friend of mine over at Push Square, reached out to Ubisoft and they said they just had nothing to report at this time. That's not a huge surprise. I don't know the value of Ubisoft Plus. I don't want to shit on it right away, because the fact of the matter is I like some Ubisoft games, but I just don't think subscription services, I feel like, are for flavors, right? Like I can see Game Pass working because there's a lot of different things to pull from, a lot of different flavors, a lot of different publishers and developers and whatever. But Ubisoft largely has a feel. Ubisoft largely has a style. And so when you're signing up for Ubisoft Plus, yeah, you might get Steep and you might get Riders Republic, but you're going to get a bunch of Assassin's Creed, a bunch of Tom Clancy, and I don't know. I don't find that very compelling. Yeah. So
it's just a bunch of open world, kind of a lot of open world. So I hope you're into it. It's the open world subscription service. The thing that's weird about it to me is just because it immediately brought up a memory of when you would see Assassin's Creed on the shelf of like a GameStop or something. It would be like 40 extra minutes of gameplay. It's like, are they gonna like? Is that gonna be it? It's like, oh, hey, you could buy the game normally, or you could subscribe to it on Ubisoft Plus, and you get 40 extra minutes.
Hell yeah, dude.
Of Assassin's Creed. Which how do you even? That always baffled me. How do you measure gameplay time in a game that you could perpetually play forever?
I used to use the term at IGN dev math, which was always that you basically always had to divide by 2 any claim as to the length of a game. And I brought up before that I had a huge blowout with Sony during Infamous Festival of Blood, the Infamous 2 DLC, when I claimed I beat it in 90 minutes and they were like, you're lying. And then I had a trophy. The trophies proved that I beat it in literally 90 minutes and they had to basically apologize to me. And,
wow.
And I was like, yeah, your game is not as long as you think. I don't know why you're telling everyone it's 3 or 4 hours long. It's not. But nonetheless, that is dev math. Ubisoft Plus, not on PS4 and PS5 anytime soon, but if you're over on Xbox, enjoy. Thought it was interesting just to point out Babylon's Fall from Platinum Games, published by Square Enix, has gone gold. And I thought this was strange because the game's not due out for 2 months. So when I read this, I was like, what? Why? Almost like, why are you gold? It can't possibly be. Dustin, what's your temperature on Babylon's Fall as we go into its release soon?
Ice cold right now. I mean, it was cool to see them take all that feedback from the beta. They were very detailed, which is very appreciated. I would like to see, it's a demo, but an open beta of some kind to get our hands on it. This could be a game that looks bad. We talked about the watercolor aesthetic not really doing it for us, but if the game is really fun and has an intriguing story, then I'm willing to check it out. But as of right now, from the stuff that I've seen recently, I'm not counting down the days. So I'd love to be proven wrong, though.
Yeah, I'm looking at the news actually came from a thing they're doing called Babylon's Fall official live streams. They're doing them via Square Enix, and the Japanese one only has 27,000 views from yesterday. Ooh. So it's not like this thing that is overwhelmingly popular or seemingly interesting. But Chris, will you play Babylon's Fall?
Probably not. It doesn't look like my style. It looks so slow. All I can think about when I think of Babylon's Fall is the first time I saw it and how like muddy and slow it looked in comparison to literally anything else surrounding it, even in that showcase. And it just, I don't know. It didn't grab me unless somehow they make a massive development swap and change the entire feel of the game after it's gone gold. I just don't see this being one that I go for, especially considering the 2 months that await us. Yeah, there's a lot to play.
That's a great point. I almost feel like it would if they're gold, it would behoove them to get the game out as soon as possible, but they obviously
put it out now.
Yeah.
If it's gold now, put it out now.
I agree. But I don't know. I feel like this game is almost certainly going to fail, but we'll find out. It feels like a Game Pass game. Like, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if this game came to Game Pass. Remember, Square Enix has a relationship with Xbox on Game Pass already with Outriders, and they might want to do the same thing here, So we will find out, but not looking good for Babylon's Fall, I don't think. For the weebs out there, since we're talking about Square Enix, just a quick note. Kotaku actually wrote via a Japanese tweet from Akitoshi Kawazu, who made the SaGa series, the SaGa JRPG series. Apparently there's a remaster, a remake, and a new game. So 3 different games in the works from this franchise, of course, which we knew as Final Fantasy Legend on Game Boy originally in the late 80s and early 90s. It's interesting because the SaGa Frontier, SaGa Scarlet Grace came out a while ago, but there was that SaGa Frontier re-release that got some people's attention. And so I just wanted everyone to note that, in my opinion, dicey JRPG series might be coming back with a trio of games soon. We were talking earlier about Development Hell, game that's actually in development hell, Skull and Bones, according to Andy Robinson, great journalist over at Video Games Chronicle, notes that they have lost the game's co-director. Antoine Henry has updated his LinkedIn profile to say he's left, and not looking good for this game. Don't know what they're even doing with this game or when it's going to come out. Obviously, this game was born out of Assassin's Creed, naval combat, It's a good idea, but this game was revealed, as I recall, in 2017 at E3.
Yep.
Ubisoft doesn't typically release or reveal games that are not ready for prime time within the year or two. They showed it that following E3, and then it's kind of, I think, gone dark. I don't know. Dustin, you think this game's actually going to come out?
Isn't there some kind of deal that they took money from the government where it's being developed, and so it has
Singapore,
to come out?
Something like that.
Something like that. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I don't know. It's not looking good. Not looking good for that game.
It's been 5 years, and it doesn't even seem like that complicated of a game. You know, they already kind of have the bones of it, no pun intended, in Assassin's Creed. So why? When they showed it, it just looked like more of that part of Assassin's Creed. So I don't know why this is taking such an insanely long time. This is actually development hell, by the way. This is an announcement for a game, has a name and everything. We've seen it in action, and then it disappears for years. Beyond Good and Evil 2 is another one,
right?
Where it just refuses to come out. It's not something that we know is happening through like whispers of like, oh, untitled pirate game. You know, there's a difference.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
This is
with deliberate marketing and deliberate intent to get it onto people's radars. I assume this game was supposed to come out in 2018, which means that it was just totally rebooted, and maybe we'll hear more about it soon. I don't know, maybe at E3 this year as that approaches slowly. I just wanted to point this out. This came from gamesindustry.biz. Twitch viewership up year over year, 45%. I thought was incredible. 24 billion hours of video on Twitch watched. It's 45% up year over year. It's just a massive gain.
It's exploding.
Yeah. We're not over there. I mean, you guys are over there individually. We as a company are not over there, or our show. I'm not really into streaming. I think if I ever stream again, like I was streaming some G.I. Joe stuff, I want to stream like different stuff. I don't want to stream games. I just don't find that fun, but clearly I'm in the minority on that. So you guys are doing well on Twitch, right? Having fun over there?
Yeah. Every now and again. I haven't streamed in a hot minute, but I did an 11-hour stream not too long ago because I had to reset my sleep schedule because I was going to sleep. I was going to sleep at 4 a.m. and waking up at 3 in the afternoon. It was messing me up. I hated it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to push through. I'm going to stream all night and just brute force myself awake until like maybe like 7 or 8 or 9 the next day and just pass out and get myself back on schedule. But that was a lot of fun. I thought that was going to be really grueling, but it actually flew by. Those 11 hours, kind of crazy.
Yeah, those long streams, we used to do those are kind of funny, and they're exhausting. Yeah, when you're tired, I don't think people realize, in my opinion, being on in quotes, it's hard. It's engaging. It's exhausting, but certainly, I'm not doing anything difficult. Just time consuming. Okay. Let's stop here with Grammar Nazi, who wrote in and said, today, my fiance gave birth to our daughter. And yes, being a video game nerd and a former Sony pony, I picked the name Ellie. I'm sure she'll be listening to you all talk about fucking chickens in the near future. What a time to be alive. Congratulations to you, Grammar Nazi and Ellie Nazi.
Yeah.
Last name Nazi.
His name is Grammar. That's so dumb.
Congratulations to you.
That's
and
like
welcome,
a dad
Ellie.
joke.
Yeah.
Which is very thematic to the question.
Indeed. Welcome, Ellie, to the world. And welcome to Sacred Symbols. Don't listen for 18 years. For once in my life, let me get right to the point. CBD, or cannabidiol, is a wonder substance. Feel CBD is the best cannabidiol I've ever used, and I believe it can help you right this very minute to feel better, sleep sounder, and escape bodily aches and pains. And you can do all of this at feels.com/symbols, where you can become a member and get 40% off your first 3 months of product with free shipping. Now, let me slow walk you a little bit, take you by your precious hand, and show you what's what. CBD is a byproduct of the esteemed marijuana plant. But unlike CBD's cousin THC, which gets you stoned, CBD merely works to make you feel better without the inebriation. Now, THC is great, and there are plenty of people who love it, but I truly believe it's CBD that most inquiring minds actually want. Because there is no high, but there is relief, whether from anxiety or stress or sleeplessness and more. It's actually kind of amazing. At its core, Feels is all about tincture, and it's the way I recommend many newcomers and most people, period, take it. All you do is take a few drops and place them under your tongue. Moments later, you'll begin feeling the effect as the day washes off of your shoulders, as you lull into a dream, as you say goodbye to lingering physical pain. And if you're feeling intimidated by the process in any way, you can speak to Feels' actually human-run helpline, where they'll guide you towards the appropriate dosing that will work best for you and what you're looking to achieve. Heck, if you're feeling daring, you can even try Feels' new CBD mints, which come in a discreet and convenient package and provide relief on the go. But I'm a real stickler for the tincture, and I've never encountered CBD as fine as Feels in the years I've been dabbling. So take it from me, friends, and give Feels a try at feels.com/symbols. That's feals.com/SYMBOLS. There you could become a member, get 40% off your first 3 months, and score free shipping. See how CBD can change your life with Feels by becoming a member at feels.com/symbols, scoring 3 months of product at 40% off with free shipping in the process. Guys, let's get into what we're playing. And Dustin, I want to begin with you this week. Dakota Brown wrote into us on Patreon and said, "Hey guys, I'm writing in to see if Dustin or perhaps someone else on the show has played Death's Door yet. I beat it a few weeks back, and I honestly think it's the best game I've played all year. I absolutely love the Zelda elements, the combat, the bosses, and most of all, the beautiful graphics. I'm a little surprised that Colin has not checked it out yet, assuming he hasn't still, because it seems right up his alley. Would love to hear everyone's thoughts. I hope you all had a great break, and I appreciate each of you greatly. Thank you, Dakota, for writing in. I have not checked it out yet. I probably would like it, but I haven't even really looked at it, and we'll talk about what I'm playing shortly. But Dustin, I know you have been playing Death's Door, so talk about it.
My goal when our break started is that I wanted to play one game all the way through, which sounds easy for, you think we have 2 weeks off, but with my parents being here and all the different activities, I actually did a lot less gaming over the break. But I thought, I can get through Death's Door, and I did. I was able to go through and play from start to finish that whole game, and it is pretty good. I'm very surprised by people giving it their game of the year. I think that's a little bit too high praise, but overall, I thought it was a nice, enjoyable experience. It's difficult in a lot of areas. It's, I think part of my problem is that at some point when I was playing, I started to think like, well, I'm liking this, but I'm not loving it. So I'm not going to do any kind of side stuff or really explore. I'm just kind of going to leisurely go through the main game. So I didn't upgrade my character quite as much as I should have. So it got pretty difficult by the end. But overall, the thing I think that I loved most about this game is just it's very charming and cute. You play as a crow who's a reaper, and some of the characters and creatures you interact with on your journey are just awesome. There's a guy with a pot head guy. He's pretty cool. And the combat is neat, rewarding. You unlock new abilities as you go. It's great. It's a really fun game. I recommend it. If you're interested in these types of games, like you said, Zelda, something like that, it has a bit of a, take it easy here when I say this, but a little bit of a Souls feel. Typical games journalist doesn't know how to say anything but Souls-like. No, but really, I had that feeling in that the combat is really focused around perfectly timed dodges. So it gave me that same feeling of dodging and learning enemy movement patterns, stuff like that. So overall, Death's Door, pretty good. I recommend it.
I'm looking at it now. It looks great. Acid Nerve is awesome. Those are the guys that did that boss battle game, right?
Yes.
Titan Souls.
Titan Souls, yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. Which was like a one-hit boss run game, which was, I'm not crazy about that stuff, but I remember that was on Vita pretty early, and it was cool.
Yeah.
I think I'll check this out. I'm looking at the trophies, and it says there are 3 missable trophies, and 15 hours maybe. So I'm gonna check this. Maybe I'll check this out, because there's a couple of games I want to get in before we vote on Game of the Year next week for the episode next week. Guardians of the Galaxy, I think, is the most urgent one that I haven't played, but that I'd like to get in first. But maybe I'll throw this one on the list. So what else have you been playing?
Yeah. I've been playing more recently Persona 5 Strikers. That's probably my most shameful game that I did not complete. I picked it up when it came out and played probably about 10 hours, and then something else came up. And I realized I'm just not really into Musou style games, but obviously I'm a big Persona fan. So this time I'm just putting it on easy, and I'm going to just play through for the story and the characters and all of that. So that's been very light over this past week.
Mike has been enjoying that, by the way. She's been playing that on Switch over the break, and she like loves it. Yeah,
nice. Yeah, it's cool. It's weird that it's a very direct sequel to Persona 5, and so it is great to be with those characters again in a new way. It doesn't just feel like a cheap spin-off. It's clear that there was a lot of care put into this game. So,
Omega Force is underrated, I think.
Yeah.
They do good work. They make Musos, but they do good work with IP. I mean, think of Dragon Quest Heroes. People love that game. I love that game. That was one of the only Musos I played deeply because they treat IP with a lot of care. So it's not a huge surprise that game would be great as well. And I don't think that I don't think it's funny. Omega Force works with some big names, and I think the respect is mutual. They don't seem to make Musos for games that don't matter, and they don't seem to work with like questionable partners. So
right.
Yeah. Cool.
The last thing for me was I decided to pick up a Quest 2 after Christmas.
How much does that cost?
And $300.
Nice.
So
that's a good price, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. So I picked that up, and I've just been playing a bunch of VR games, and some of these are available on PlayStation VR and some of them aren't. But I have to shout out this one game in particular, Colin, that I think you would be super into. It's called Demio or Demio. I've never heard it said out loud. And I don't know if this is on PlayStation. I meant to check it out.
What is it called? What DEMIO?
DEMEO.
DEMEO. Okay.
I believe.
Cool.
And this game is a top-down tactical RPG in VR. And the way you play is you're in a basement and you play with up to 3 other players, and it's like there's miniatures on this table, and you can zoom in real close and kind of be in the dungeon environment or whatever, or you can zoom out and you hold your hand out and you have your options of all your spell cards. And so you just take the card out and put it on your character. And I've only got to play this one time with Locke and Ben. We had a blast playing it, and I've been thinking about it ever since. And I think what's so cool about it is that I don't think it's a game that needs to be in VR. In fact, I think they're coming out with a non-VR version of it. But it's I feel like I wouldn't want to play it that way. It's a lot of the intrigue is in the viewpoint, the ability to get in close or change the angle, whatever. It's a really, really neat game. The other ones I've just been playing real quick are checking out Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, which a lot of people say is one of the best VR games ever.
Did you like that? Yeah.
I haven't played a ton of that one either yet, because honestly, I don't like scary games in VR. I can do scary games on a flat TV, that's fine, but there's something about that extra level of immersion that makes it a little more difficult. Luckily, this game isn't too bad, but it's weird. They make it so your movements have weight to them. So if you pick up like an axe, your arms kind of sway along a little bit. And it sounds like that would be weird and disconnected, but it somehow works. And it just feels incredibly violent in a way that makes you feel like a serial killer, where if you have like a screwdriver and you jam it into a zombie's face, it feels visceral, I guess is the right word. But that's been awesome playing that. Just Beat Saber. What's the other one?
Pistol
John Wick one that we were talking about before the show started, Chris.
Pistol Whip.
Pistol Whip. Yeah, that game is so cool. I've talked about it before, but if you haven't checked out Pistol Whip, I actually think, I don't know if it's better than Beat Saber, but if you're looking for an experience like that, it's like being John Wick in VR. It's so cool. But overall, I'm excited because we'll be talking about VR more this episode, and I feel just excited about that platform in general right now.
Well, it's a convenient time for you to be talking about it, not only because Chris has been playing VR games too, but because we're going to be talking a lot about VR in a little while. Chris, let's segue to you, and you can pick it up however you want. I assume you might want to just pick up off of the VR stuff that you've been playing if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, I've also been doing a lot of VR stuff. I've been kind of, as I said earlier, I was just showing my family some VR stuff. I had my mom play Beat Saber. It was hilarious. because she doesn't play video games at all. She's like, how do the boxes are coming at me? It's like it's a fun. It's really fun to introduce people to VR because it's a very, you don't get a lot of firsts like that, and it's probably gonna be a long time before we get another thing like VR to introduce people and blow people's minds with. So that was really fun. I've still been doing Beat Saber, Pistol Whip, but what I did recently was I got a cable to hook it up to my computer so I could play Half-Life Alyx and Boneworks, these games that I really appreciate just because they're really physics driven. And I really hope, given some of the news that we're going to be talking about later, that these games make their way to PlayStation, because I think they're just so exceptional in just how they use that format and how interesting they are, and just it's a really exciting platform to explore. Even if me personally, it kind of gets hard for me because I don't know, it's my eyes or something. I have to take breaks pretty regularly, but even with that, it's still a lot of fun. I've been doing a little bit of Spider-Man because I haven't really gone back to Spider-Man since I platinumed it, and I just sort of thought, oh yeah, there's like a PS5 version of it, and it runs at 60. There's like ray tracing. I was just curious about it. I was also just feeling nostalgic because of the movie that just came out, and I was like, I'm interested in jumping back into this game. I got my Tobey Maguire suit on through the whole time, so I'm really happy about that I get to play that game like that again. And that's been the same. Spider-Man's fantastic, especially now that I know to skip the puzzles. That's like a great feature that I'm really glad is in there.
Yeah, Insomniac's awesome at that. I love that. They do that in Ratchet as well.
Thank God. I am right now. I'm up to the first Mary Jane mission though, which is whatever. But fantastic game, feels great to play. The kind of wild card for me was during the 11-hour stream that I was on. I was just going back and forth through some games. Some of them weren't running right, and I was just kind of like trying to find something to play. And somebody in my chat was commented that, hey, the System Shock remake demo is out on Steam. I was like, what? I didn't know this. I didn't hear about it. I didn't hear anybody talking about it. So I jumped into it. It was a small demo. System Shock is a very it's the predecessor to BioShock. It's a very old school immersive sim kind of survival game, and it's really cool. It's got this like cyberpunk aesthetic, but everything's kind of retro. It's hard to describe the texture work and the art design here, but I would recommend everybody look up the System Shock demo gameplay if you can, because it's a very interesting look. It's very neon, it's very vibrant, it's very dark, it's very surreal. And I was playing through it, and I found myself really loving it. It doesn't hold your hand at all. It really feels like you're there in a lot of ways, even though this is a game that is built off of the design backbones of a game that's relatively ancient. It holds up pretty well with modernized controls, and the atmosphere is really solid. I was really getting into it that by the time I ended it, I was genuinely disappointed. And I was looking forward to System Shock Remake always as like kind of like a wild card, like, oh, that might be cool, might be interesting. I might pick it up for a little bit and put it down. But it got me really excited to try other things like it in the meantime while I wait. And as of recording this, I've just started Prey again.
Nice.
Because Prey is the game that everybody was recommending to me after I finished the demo. Everybody's like, you got to play Prey. And I played Prey a little bit. We talked about it on the show like way, way, way long ago. And I think at that time, I didn't fully understand what I was playing. I did still like it, but I wasn't in the immersive sim mindset that I am now, I think. I think I was looking for something a little bit more like BioShock, or a little bit more like a single-player first-person, more like a Fallout type deal, was what I was kind of going in expecting. And it wasn't exactly that, and I kind of got lost, and I kind of got overwhelmed, and I just sort of put it down and fell towards other things. But now I think I kind of have a better understanding of what this genre is all about. And I've just started Prey. I'm still in the early section, so I haven't really gone out to explore anything beyond the intro, because I haven't had that much time, family being here and whatnot. but I'm looking forward to getting into Prey, and more specifically, I'm getting excited to play Prey Moon Crash, which I've heard nothing but good things about, especially given how Deathloop is being received. Because what I'm told by a lot of people is Prey Moon Crash is Deathloop done way better. And nobody talks about it because it was Prey, and nobody understood what Prey was. So I'm just really excited to start Prey. That's the main thing, to sink my teeth into it. But that's really what I've been playing. I've been obviously playing Halo and Destiny as I always will be, but those are the main things that I've been focusing on.
It's funny you bring up Prey because that game's been on my mind on and off too, because it's one of those games I remember playing it for a few hours and I just didn't like the combat, but it was a very attractive game to me. Like I wanted to like it. I wanted to play it. I just couldn't bring myself to do it for some reason. I just wasn't into it. And it's always been on my mind. So maybe I'll get back to it at some point as well. And as far as you bringing up the System Shock remake, it's interesting. System Shock, of course, came out in 1994 and is beloved. Warren Spector was the producer of the game. But Night Dive Studios are the ones that are remaking the game. And they don't typically remake games, but they're a fascinating team. If people go in and read about them, they basically re-release. They're specialists at re-releasing old, early polygonal era shooters. They re-released the Turok games. They re-released Doom 64, Shadow Man, which I just saw on the PSN yesterday. I was like, Shadow Man's on PlayStation Network? So I went, that's an old Acclaim game. They did Sin Reloaded and Blade Runner. So they have an interesting experience. And I think System Shock is exciting. It's coming to PlayStation 4 at some point in 2022. Yeah. So yeah, good selection. All right. For me, I've played a trio of games over the holidays primarily, and Cletus Van Damme, lost son of Jean-Claude Van Damme, wrote in and said, Colin, this one's for you directly. The past few shows prior to the recorded end of the year content, you were playing Far Cry 6. Did you finish it over the break? If so, without being too spoilerish, where does this one rank on the ones you've played? I haven't started this one yet, but right now my favorite is 5, followed closely by 3. 4 is at the bottom for me. Also, did it feel too big? I'm playing AC Valhalla right now, and this game is going to take forever, but I'm determined to finish it before moving on. And Andrew Betteridge also wrote in and said, hey guys, jumped into Far Cry 6 due to Colin's constant praise of the game. I am loving it so far. With how massive the world is and how much shit there is to do, I am curious to know how Colin and the rest of the team chip away at open world games. So Far Cry 6 was interesting to me. I did beat it. And finally, I played for about 80 hours, and I loved it. Like, I just loved it. I just lost myself to Far Cry 6. I don't know what about this game specifically had me captured other than just the normal trappings of Far Cry, just done really well. Plus, I think a lot of, as I've noted in December, just a lot of extra je ne sais quoi, really. There's just a lot of cool stuff in there, a lot of different feel, a lot of production value, fun characters and dialogue, and a world that you could approach like a Far Cry game, but it didn't let you. And one of the things that I really liked that I didn't even know was that when you beat the game is like infinitely playable. In previous Far Cry games, you used to just be able to reset the bases and go fight them again. But in this one, the story is that you're an insurgency taking over a dictatorship run Cuban-like island. But when you beat the game, the military becomes the insurgency that you've been fighting, and they pop up all over the map. And you have like certain amounts of real-time days to go and fight them. And by doing all these things in their territory, it releases like the location of an insurgency leader that you have to go and kill. And the game becomes playable like that. And I was like, oh, this is fucking dope, because you get nervous playing Far Cry games and Assassin's Creed and other games thinking that you're kind of checking boxes and turning things off. And that's satisfying, but this game makes sure that there's always a spigot on for you to get like fresh water from. And I think that I really like that the most about the game. So Far Cry 6 comes highly recommended. I think it's top quality, one of the best games that I played in 2021, no doubt. And I really enjoyed it. Persona 4 Golden, I'm at hour 45 in now. I been plugging away an hour here, 2 hours here. During football, I kind of just sit there all day and play while I'm watching. So that's like my big 2 days to be able to play. But here's the thing is that it really is wonderful. It's a wonderful game. There's just no denying that it's more for me than I thought it was. but that I have to accept what I've been saying, which is that I just have to play it with a guide. I just can't go in and play it willy-nilly. Like, I need to know that I'm seeing and doing everything. And that's only been reinforced the further I've gotten into the game, as so many different options have opened up. I just would have worried myself into sickness playing this game without, like, that's just the way I am. And figuring out a way to get around that has been nice. I just beat the 4th dungeon. I will say that I'm so loath to waste days in the game that I just stay in the dungeon that I'm in for the entire, like, one day. I do it all in one day.
That's what I do.
Yeah, and I think some people jump in and out and level themselves up and stuff, but I don't want to waste any time. But that means that you're committed for a while, and I was pretty underleveled, it turned out, in the 4th dungeon, and so I had a grind. I was in there for 8.5 in-game hours. So I was basically in that dungeon for a fifth of the time that I've been playing the game. And I was kind of like, God, I want to just go back out and get to what I think is the really fun stuff. I love turn-based combat, and the fusing of the personas is interesting, but I really love the social links, talking to people, like seeing more of the story. So it's really awesome. And I'm really glad that I finally got to play it. And I opened my mind to it twice in the past. So I don't want to say I'm glad I finally opened my mind to it. People will recall that last time I tried in 2019, I got like 25 hours in, and I was just like, I just don't want to play this. I think it's finally made sense to me now, which is good. So there's that. And then the final game I've been playing for only a few hours, is Record of Lodoss War Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth. Horrible name.
What kind of name is that?
So Record of Lodoss War, of course, is a Japanese IP. It's a Record of Lodoss War is like a Japanese Dungeons and Dragons kind of. And I think there's like paper and pencil stuff and all of that. I think there are books, and then I think there is like an anime and manga, and then there are some games. And I don't know anything about it, but Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth is this new game that came from a Japanese team called Ladybug, and it is just a pure ode to Symphony of the Night, and it's really, really awesome. It suffers from, I think, poor localization and writing, but it's so slick and fun to play, and it deals with this duality system wherein you constantly switch between fire and wind attacks, and you level them kind of up separately. And when you get one leveled up all the way, then it can be used to buttress and heal yourself when you're using the other one. So it basically forces you to take these combat risks constantly. It actually reminds me a little bit in some way of the kind of lost Housemarque game that people might remember that they did with Ubisoft called Outland, where you played with polarity in the same kind of way. So it's a fun game. There's so many literal odes to Symphony of the Night. I was showing some of them to Micah. The character like backs up, like when you dash backwards, just like Alucard does. The save rooms are basically identical to Symphony of the Night, the map layouts and all of that. You'll see it when you play it. But if you're into that stuff like I am, this might be a game you want to look for. I think it's a little expensive. I think I paid $25 for it. I might wait for it to go on sale, but look at the videos and see it for yourself. I'm really happy that I jumped into it, but it ended up being a nice distraction because I was going to stick with Far Cry 6 until I got the platinum, and I've been kind of platinumless for a while, and I feel like I've been lazy on the platinum front, so I need to go and clean a few things up at some point. But I couldn't resist the Record of Lodoss War Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth. So go check it out, nerds. I know you want to. I'm the kind of person that readily washes his face with bar soap, so needless to say, you won't find me on very many skincare regimens or using very many extraneous products. That's what made Curology so interesting to me, because when I got the chance to sign up for myself, I realized that there was actually a constellation of potential issues I was ignoring, and that I could tend to all of them with barely a second thought. My friends, it's simple. Curology is the way to go if you want ultra easy skincare. When you sign up at Curology.com/sacred, you'll get a custom prescription skin cream made just for you by your dermatology provider for your specific goals. Whether that's tackling acne, clogged pores, skin texture, dark spots, fine lines, or something else entirely. Beginning your journey is easy. You start by taking a short online skin quiz, and if what you need fits what Curology offers, they'll concoct your personal formula and ship it right to your door. It's truly that easy. While store-bought products work for many, there are many others that are left in the lurch because skincare isn't one size fits all. In fact, it's a reason why I eschewed the entire notion of skincare in my younger years. With Curology's targeted expertise, however, it's hard to say no. Everything comes in a convenient and discreet box, and you'll see and feel the difference when you deploy it in your body care regimen. Using Curology made my skin feel cleaner and more tended to, and frankly, I can use a little pampering in my life of chronic video game playing and cheeseburger eating. So why not see what Curology can do for you and your skin? Get started with Curology just like I did with a free 30-day trial at Curology.com/sacred. That's CUROLOGY.com/SACRED. All you have to do is pay $5 for shipping and handling. That's Curology.com/sacred to start your free 30-day trial. Cancel anytime. Prescription subject to consultation. All right, guys, let's get into the news in earnest. Been using that word a lot today. There's quite a few things to get into, though. Big pieces of news, surprising pieces of news. Let's start with number one. In a surprise move, Sony has released a bunch of new information concerning its next-generation PlayStation VR unit, now officially called PlayStation VR 2, and styled with no space between the VR and 2. So VR2. Additionally, the new controllers set to come with the unit have also been named. They will be called the Sense controllers, hence the PS5's primary controller being called DualSense. In their flashy PlayStation blog write-up, Sony notes in part that, quote, PlayStation VR 2 takes VR gaming to a whole new level, enabling a greater sense of presence and allowing players to escape into game worlds like never before. With the headset on and controllers in hand, players will feel a heightened range of sensations unlike any other, thanks to the creativity of the game worlds being built by our world-class developers and the latest technology incorporated into the hardware, end quote. As such, PSVR 2 comes packing 4K HDR 110-degree field of view with foveated rendering. This comes out to a resolution of 2000 by 2040 per eye. Eye tracking will allow for controllerless movement and input as an option. You don't only have to do that. As such, as we already know, cameras in the headset will allow us to forego the PlayStation camera, cleaning up the original PlayStation VR's cluttered setup. Also making the situation better will be the single cord that PSVR 2 will be connected to PlayStation 5 with. A far cry from the 4 cords sticking out of the separate processing unit that needed to be hooked up to the PS4 along with the camera. Let's see. Both the headset and Sense controllers incorporate vibration, and both use USB-C. What the newest information from Sony doesn't incorporate, frustratingly, is release timing or price, which isn't a huge surprise. However, Sony doesn't even commit to releasing the headset this calendar year, though there are rumors out of China that production has begun in earnest, perhaps with a goal of 2 million units produced by the end of Sony's fiscal year in March of 2023. PlayStation VR 2 and its Sense controllers, vaguely revealed last year, are the successor to Sony's original PlayStation VR, a PlayStation 4 dependent platform that, at more than 5 million units sold since 2016 in launch, is the best-selling VR headset ever. However, Sony faces renewed staunch competition from the likes of Valve and Oculus, particularly if prices aren't kept low and PS5s continue to be scarce. Interestingly, backwards compatibility is something to keep an eye on. Website Axios reports Sony has nothing to announce when it asked them about the functionality with the original headset's games, which is strange. I find that weird. I don't know why they wouldn't be backwards compatible.
Yeah.
All right. Genesis Point wrote in and said, hey, CDC, Sony just announced some details on PSVR 2, including footage of a Horizon game. We'll get to that in a moment. My question is, do you think this is all a bit premature? With scarcity still an issue, do you think the niche of VR will become even more slimmer due to hardware rarity? Your content gets me through recovery. Have a good day. Thank you, Genesis Point, for writing in. Chris, what do you think? PSVR 2, kind of a surprise announcement on PlayStation blog. Coincides with CES, where they had a little presentation, but I was a little lost because I feel like they're leaving out some information. This almost feels like just a renewed version of what they already told us. And so it's exciting to see more and get some more information, but I feel like we kind of knew a lot of this already. The single cord, the foveated rendering, I feel like we kind of knew already.
Yeah. Did we know about eye tracking? I'm not sure if we knew that.
I don't think so, but it's interesting because people might remember that I've said in the past that Richard Marx, not the singer, but the guy that used to be head of Sony's R&D, was testing eye tracking on PlayStation 3. And I used eye tracking on PS3 with PS3's eye toy and played Infamous 2 such that it was controlling the camera with my pupils, and it worked. Totally worked. I played it. I did it. And so I was wondering if that was like the early form of this eye tracking technology that they ended up incorporating.
Probably.
Here.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting because you have to assume that a lot of these plans, even for PlayStation VR 2, which is probably not necessarily anywhere near release, you have to assume that this was probably made, or these plans were probably laid out pre-pandemic. Just the creation of this thing, and then the figuring out of like what internals they're going to use, or how this thing was going to be, how PSVR was going to be succeeded. And I think, is scarcity an issue given the console, the difficulty of like finding a console? Yeah, I do think that's probably a problem. But at the same time, they can't just not do anything with the technology that they have, especially if production has begun in earnest, as those reports suggest. They have to come out and say something. I do think this is a bit bare bones of an announcement, which is probably why it was at CES. CES doesn't necessarily have the most exciting reveals. It's usually very, very standard. This is how this thing works. Very little in regard, and a lot of that shit isn't even real, by the way. Like there's stuff from 2016 CES that I remember seeing that is still nowhere near. It is still not even remotely out to the public. So CES is already kind of like a weird place to go anyway. But I think the scarcity issue will be a problem if it's not resolved by the time this machine gets out, which is probably what you're figuring 2023, like fall.
Yeah, who knows?
I would guess, or maybe even spring or something like that.
I think that might be it, because they've been non-committal, but there are compelling rumors that they're manufacturing them. Like they're going to start manufacturing them, which to me indicates could be this year, maybe spring. If it was very early next year, maybe that would be possible. But this fall would be 6 years since PSVR 1. So it would really be time. My bigger issue with this, though, and Dustin, I'll throw it over to you, is I feel like, and so I should back up and say we're doing a Sacred Symbols Plus episode very shortly with Moore's Law is Dead to talk about this, PSVR 2. Of course, he's a tech expert, Tom, over there. And one of the major questions I want to ask him is, does this interfere with the manufacture of PlayStation 5s? In other words, is there any shared component or components within them that can go to PS5 to manufacture more of those instead? And if so, are they cannibalizing the more important market by focusing on PSVR? But to Chris's point, they can't just squash this project, nor do I think they want to. They've purchased developers based on this, as we're going to talk about. With Firesprite, that makes a lot more sense now. And and they obviously have this hardware that they want to follow up with millions of sales. So they're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. But I'm kind of interested in how this might affect PS5, because they've already rolled back their expectations for production once.
Right. The really overall takeaway I took from this announcement, with the different features and what we can expect, is the shift in Sony's overall strategy and outlook on VR, particularly with the original PlayStation VR. You could get the headset for $400 or the package that has everything you need for $500. And so at the time, you could get a PlayStation 4 for around $400, and you could get the complete VR set for $500. So out the gate, you can be playing VR for $900. Now, if you think about the landscape, at the time, the Oculus Rift was the main headset available. Maybe Vive was also around at that time. Those headsets were much more expensive. Particularly the Vive was very expensive. I trying to remember the Rift starting price, but you also needed a very expensive PC to be able to run a lot of this stuff. And so PlayStation really was focusing on getting people in the door on VR at a very affordable price. And there was a lot of compromises with that. The very basic tracking system of using lights on the headset and a webcam, or repurposing the old, the dildo controllers, which I'm not trying to say that as a bad thing. It actually was very intuitive how they were able to make a very compelling VR device at such a low cost. This device, though, the PSVR 2, when you look at the specs like the 4K HDR, inside out tracking, stuff like that, is much more, I don't want to say super premium. I don't think it's going to be as good as the Index, but it's definitely not entry level in a lot of ways. And so I'm expecting this thing to be better than the Quest 2, but they have and I think we talked about this when we talked about PSVR 2 in the past, that the market's so different. The Quest 2, $300, and you're in. Yeah. That's all you need. And so they no longer have that advantage of being the easiest entryway into VR. So what I'm glad to see, though, is that, and I think we talked about this also, is that I made the argument that they need to put their heavy hitters, they need to make VR games of some sort. We didn't have a Uncharted VR game. We didn't have a God of War, whatever. Not saying to make the next sequel to these games in VR, but use that IP that is so incredibly powerful to sell this platform. And
Yeah.
I was really glad to see the first game they announced, Horizon, a VR Horizon game. That to me is a huge flex, because right now what's the big flex on Oculus Quest, which is totally their main competitor for this product, is probably Resident Evil 4 VR, an old game that's been remade into VR that got a little bit of bad press at launch for some of the censorship that happened. So it's an interesting new strategy for Sony with VR. They're definitely, and I guess it's in line with PlayStation 5 in general, is that they want to be the premium console experience. You're going to spend $70 on their games because they're better. You're going to spend however much this headset is and a PS5 because the experience is better than a Quest, hopefully. And the IPs are, in their minds, in PlayStation's mind, much more compelling, hopefully, than Quest IPs. So
there's no doubt.
So that was a long explanation, but
I wonder how. I wonder if they can get in on a lower price, just from the fact that, unlike the Quest, which is kind of a standalone VR unit that doesn't need to be plugged in anything, and therefore it needs its own hard drive and memory allocation. I wonder if they can get away from that and kind of be like, hey, this headset doesn't have any memory because you need to have it connected to the PS5. Therefore, like, eliminating a large amount of the cost. Because I was looking up at different models of the Quest 2, because my cousin who was over was curious about getting one after he tried it. He was like, yeah, there's like a $400 one, there's a $300 one, and the $400 one comes with more memory. And that's the only difference. If memory is associated with that much money, you can imagine that maybe the PSVR 2 might actually come in with a pretty competitive price point with the Oculus Quest 2, given the fact that it doesn't need to even have that associated cost along with it. I wonder if that's even possible, or maybe they'll have like their own. Maybe that cost will go towards something else that'll probably inflate the cost of it even more. That's maybe like a processor in the unit. I don't know what they're planning on doing, but it's an interesting conversation to have. It's an interesting environment for PlayStation to be in, because I don't think they've ever had to compete on this exact level before, because the Quest 2 is really approachable.
Right.
Like older people are it's almost like the Wii of VR.
That's a great comparison.
Yeah, and it's going to be rough getting people in the door, and I think they made the right call by putting their IP behind it and actually flexing that Horizon thing, because that was actually super cool. I was not expecting to see that, especially at CES, which I feel like they don't really announce games at CES.
The other thing too that Sony has going against it with Facebook, and this is just hypothetical, but I'm imagining that Meta is losing money on each Quest, on each hardware sold, which is customary, but the question is how much. This is just a quick Google search, but apparently the chip that's running it has a cost of $150 for the chip alone. And so with Meta's strategy, the whole metaverse thing and how they're banking on it so hard, they changed the name of the overall corporate company to Meta. I really wonder how much they're losing on each Quest, just because they want to get VR into people's homes and buying software. And so they have that running against them too. So
to support this claim of ubiquity, to wit, my uncle Mike, who's a character on Knockback, of course, that people know, reached out to me because he was going to buy Oculus Quest for his wife, my Aunt Carla. And he was like, are there non-game things to do? And I'm like, there are, but it's not there. Like, games are the proof of function for this thing. I don't think you're going to like it. I don't think you're going to want it. And he bought it anyway. And I think that they're enjoying it, so
There's a
yeah.
surprising amount.
Yeah.
More recent, I think that now, I mean, you love it or hate it, Meta is focusing a lot on the non-gaming aspects. There's a whole pre-installed like workout thing from them. There's stuff for meetings and working in VR. I don't know how good these things are, but it's clear that it's a really, really strong initiative from them to expand the space to go beyond gaming.
Yeah, it's I have to give it to Facebook because they were interested in this a long time ago. They've been interested in this. They made Palmer Luckey very rich and acquired Oculus a while ago. And Blake Harris, of course, wrote this. My friend Blake Harris, friend of the show, wrote the seminal book all about that.
Great book.
And yeah, it is. And I actually realized when I was putting my books on my new bookshelf, I realized that I had 2 copies of it because he gave me a signed copy, and then I had an early copy, so I was able to give one to my brother-in-law actually, so he can check out that story too. So I look at Facebook as a pretty legitimate competitor and not a come lately type disinterested Google type company. Like I think that they know that their future is interconnectivity, and this is how it's going to work. And so I think that they're pretty staunch competitors as well. But I agree that the power or lack thereof of the unit will hold it back ultimately. And I know some people are concerned about this cord connecting to PS5, but that's good. The PS5 can't send the necessary bandwidth over Bluetooth, I don't think, to even the headset, unless it was super sophisticated and you're looking for, very high resolutions, high to 120 frames a second, like kinds of, I don't know what people were expecting. I looked at that and I was like, no, this is good. It's good that you don't have a processing box anymore with 4 cords coming out of it. No camera, USB-C connectivity for charging the controller, the Sense controllers. So I look at this as pretty positive. I think Sony is well positioned. I just don't know to what end people want this product. And that I think is going to be the big question. But the other big question, of course, and we brought it up before, is cost. Jason Chambers wrote in on Patreon and says, hey there, CDC, now that Sony has officially announced the PSVR 2 with some awesome specs, what do you think the price point is going to be? Based on the announced specs, I'm going to guess no less than $350. I got to say, I would imagine no less than $400 for this thing. And I can imagine even being higher than that. And I think Sony's goal has always been to release their VR units at the same cost or less as the base unit. And as you noted, Dustin, very eloquently, PS4 and PSVR basically cost the same at the time PSVR came out. It might have been PS4 Pro and PSVR. But it might have been base PS4. I don't remember. But I think that they realized they can't go any higher. So 500 is the limit. I think 400 would be very attractive. Frankly, if they think the market can withstand the sticker shock, it would be even tempting for them to put PS5 and PSVR 2 into the same box with some games and equipment and all of that for $1,000, right? Like, and I think you're right. And they can say, listen, this is the best VR you're going to get for this price. No doubt about it. And we've had success in the past. We've proved it. PSVR was successful. And they look at something that's sold basically 1/4 as much as PlayStation Vita, and they love it. So clearly they have different expectations here. I'm looking forward to seeing more of this. I wouldn't be surprised if this came out this year. I will say that. But I just don't know how they rectify any production conundrum. They might not be one. And that's why I really want to talk to Tom about when we do the episode of Sacred Symbols Plus. He might have an answer saying, like, listen, they don't really share components of any consequence. But my suspicion is they might. And I don't know that it's wise to cannibalize the PS5 for PSVR, but they might have to. Sitting on this thing will also make it weaker the more that they sit on it.
Yeah, that's true. As a layman, I would just say it's hard for me to believe that there would be no shared components at all. Speaking as somebody who doesn't know anything about this stuff, so take it for as much as that's worth. But I feel like there has to be some shared components in the PS5 and the PSVR 2. Like it seems that just seems to make sense to me. But if that's not a concern of theirs, then we could see it this year.
We'll see.
I just don't know if this is a fall type thing. I feel like this is more of a spring thing.
Well, PSVR came out in October. That's the only reason.
Did it?
Yeah, October, like October 26th or something like that. 2016. I don't know.
We'll see.
I I'm of two minds with this, and I guess let's all make our predictions. I'll say $400 this fall. I think it is a fall product personally, Chris, because I think it's a Christmas gift. That's why I feel it's different than a console in my mind. It's like, it's the same reason Oculus is popular with my uncle. I feel like it's just one of those things, but it is a building block that requires a foundation you might not even be able to get, and that might cause some problems. So yeah, I'm going to say this fall for $400. That's going to be my bold prediction. What about you, Dustin?
Yesterday I was saying 500, but I just don't know if they can compete with Oculus at that price. So I think I'm in agreement at 400. I will say early 2023, just because of the current production woes of PS5 and potential production woes with this device itself. That maybe their goal is right now to have it out this year, but I'm guessing that's going to be variable. So let's say early 2023.
The non-committal nature of the post is evident. I don't know how you can read it any other way. So I agree with you. I don't think they know. Chris, what do you think?
I'm gonna go wild card. I'm gonna say 350.
Oh,
that'd be nice.
Because I do have a suspicion that maybe the lack of onboard memory might be a hidden bonus to keeping the costs a little bit more down than we might expect. I don't think it's going to come to parity with Oculus, but I do think they're going to try and get it as close as they possibly can. And I do think 400, while it is a lot more competitive, I do think most people are still going to look at the $300 thing that doesn't require anything and pick that 9 times out of 10 over the thing that requires something that they might not have. And the only way that they're actually going to get in the door with that is if they keep psychologically, I think the first number the same, which would be anyway, because it would be 390, but I think 350 March.
Cool. 3 different answers. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. We'll find out what happens with PSVR 2. I predicted the name would be PSVR 2, but I also think there's just too many numbers now. They really do need to bite the bullet at some point and just call this thing PlayStation, but I don't know when they're going to do that. All right. Let's move on to the news that we've already talked a bit about, but I want to get deeper into. Number 2, alongside Sony's PlayStation VR 2 info dump comes more good news. An exclusive Horizon game is coming to PSVR 2. The game is called Horizon Call of the Mountain. Now, it's weird because they fucking annoy me with this franchise. I put a colon after Horizon when I write it, but they don't put a colon after the stuff. It's just Horizon Call of the Mountain. Okay. And it's being built from the ground up for PlayStation VR 2, a co-production of Horizon's native studio Guerrilla and one of Sony's newest acquisitions, Firesprite. However, it's likely Firesprite is leading the way with Guerrilla in a support and advisory role. Interestingly, Call of the Mountain won't star Aloy, but another character entirely. But as with PSVR 2 itself, we don't know a release date yet, nor much other information. The new Horizon game for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, Forbidden West, launches in just over a month on February 18th. That, of course, is a sequel to Guerrilla's smash hit 2017 open world RPG, Horizon Zero Dawn. Before that, Guerrilla was known as the studio behind Killzone, Sony's one-time attempt at a Halo-killing FPS franchise during the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 eras, right into PS4's launch with Shadowfall. Meanwhile, Firesprite, purchased outright by Sony in September of last year, is best known for its work on the PlayStation Camera and PSVR-centric PlayStation 4 apps, The Playroom and Playroom VR, as well as the horror game The Persistence on PS4 and PSVR that was free a month or two ago on PlayStation Plus. Braxton Wilkerson wrote into us on Patreon and said, "Howdy, Crustin. This is my first time writing in, and I would like to know how you are feeling about PlayStation VR 2. I would also like to know how you feel about Horizon game being in the works to support it, maybe at launch, especially with it being so close to Forbidden West. I hope you are all starting your new year well." Dustin, I'll start with you here. I mean, I feel like Horizon on the console or Horizon on the headset's smart. I feel like they are pushing Horizon to a bound where they have expectations that this thing is going to continue to snowball into something bigger, because we don't even have Forbidden West yet. I can't imagine Forbidden West is going to be anything less than excellent. I don't think anyone expects that it's going to be anything less than excellent. But we don't even have a second game yet. Now we already have the third game announced. I wonder, just as devil's advocate, because I really have no problem with this announcement, my only thought is, could they have picked a different IP that might have had a similar pop, but doesn't wear Horizon out? Because I think Braxton is right. Like, we're getting our new Horizon game right now, and we're going to get another new Horizon game. It almost, it's nice, but it's not. Like, it's nice, but it's like, what about X? What about Y? What about SOCOM?
Ooh.
Dustin, what do you think?
I disagree. I think that Horizon is the perfect choice for a VR game. It's got tons of excitement already behind the new game. I think that this is going to be months and months away from Horizon 2, so there will be a bit of a gap. And I think that it has many of the qualities that you look for in a VR game. Particularly, I think that they were very smart in the very, very brief teaser to show the super tall, what are they called? The one that has like
necks or whatever.
The long neck. Yeah. The fact that they showed that in the trailer was excellent, just in the fact that one thing that you get from VR that you just simply can't on the same level from a regular screen is scale. And the thought of seeing some of these robot dinosaurs, whatever they're called, in their scale is amazing. I cannot wait for this. And I have the trailer on now, and I was thinking about it. I'm like, man, the graphics, which this is, it's probably still long ways off. So there's plenty of time for the graphics to change. But even if they're close to what we're seeing in this trailer, you can't get anything like that on the Quest 2. And the Quest 2 is perfectly great at other things. But this is what's exciting for me, is this really AAA high quality VR experience that we'll be able to get from the PlayStation VR 2, hopefully, is really exciting. And I think that bringing the big guns, as I was saying earlier, your big IP, sell it with your big IP. That's what's going to get people very, very excited. Last gen or PSVR 1, Until Dawn, Rush of Blood, stuff like that. It's cool and it's fun, but it doesn't get people amped up and say, I have to buy this product. In fact, I think that I don't want to say the only, but the big thing that they had at launch was Resident Evil 7 VR, which is amazing. Very cool. And I'm sure sold a lot for it. But you saw stronger support for PSVR from third parties or a second party-ish relationship, because I'm sure Sony has still paid to keep that off of PC VR to this day. So I am glad to see Horizon be the game. And the only thing, one other small detail I just want to get in there, is that the only thing disappointing about this announcement is that they showed this on-rails moment. And I'm just praying that this is not an on-rails thing. I was talking to our friend of the show, Jimmy Champagne, last night, and what he said made total sense. It's like VR is better than on-rails at this point. When VR came out, an on-rails game, fine. I mentioned Until Dawn, Rush of Blood. This can't be an on-rails game, period.
Yeah, Alec Garza wrote into us about that on Patreon, asking, will this be an on-rails experience, or will it be truly something that will push VR forward like Half-Life Alyx did? I don't think this is going to be on-rails. I would be surprised, because I just think stapling Until Dawn to an on-rails game is fine. Until Dawn is basically meaningless.
That game was fun.
It didn't. I loved it. Oh yeah, and I like Until Dawn a lot. The original. I think Sony let a good opportunity go to keep Until Dawn going in a meaningful way, but it didn't really matter. I think Horizon, I don't think you take a risk with that, and so I would be shocked, Alec and others fearful, if they went that route. But maybe, Chris, you had spoke about it earlier, but I mean, what do you think about seeing Horizon here? I know you're not as hot on this franchise as I am, but
Yeah. I think it makes it. I'm in agreement with Dustin, where I think this is a really good franchise to pick for a VR outing, specifically because, and this is like a really simplistic take, but bow and arrow is perfect for VR. Like it's like one of the most perfect things you could. I could see God of War being a little weird. You gotta flail around like an asshole. Uncharted is climbing. If Boneworks is any indication, climbing isn't exactly quite where it needs to be. So I think you have something in Horizon that's, open world, it's expansive. It has that sense of scale associated with the enemies. It has that tactile sense of combat that you could easily achieve with VR. I think for sure this was the right call. I also don't necessarily think it's coming out this year, so I don't think it's going to be all that weird to have Horizon Forbidden West and then Horizon VR so close to each other because I don't think they're going to be launching in the same year. Especially, I just that's one of the reasons why I think what I think about the release date of it. It'd be really weird to see those two launch super close.
There's also
to each
no
other.
confirmation that it's a launch game.
That's also true. Yeah,
Right.
We don't know if it's a launch title. It could be just something that they're working on. And quite honestly, I honestly don't think this is a launch title. Just because I feel like if it was, and we are as close as we can, conceivably are, I don't think we're any further from spring 2022. I think we would have seen a little bit more, or at least we would have had some announcement of a showcase where we would have seen more of it if it was that close. Also, they just got Fire Sprite.
Yeah,
It's not. It would be hard for me to believe that they could deliver something that's a really AAA VR defining experience in the same vein that Half-Life Alyx was in such a short time frame. I think this is something that was started somewhat recently. I think this is still a ways away, even if the machine itself might be a little bit closer. But this is super exciting. It kind of sends a message that Sony is putting their weight behind this platform in a way that they didn't before. I think Horizon's a great choice. The next obvious choice to me, if we could get Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, I was thinking that for sure.
If we could get that real sensation of swinging in VR, you have no idea how happy I would be. That is like a dream that I have had my entire life, to be able to do something like that in VR and have that experience. I would have Spider-Man dreams still to this day. Like I have those dreams where I'm just swinging around and it's awesome. So that to me, literally anybody, please just do this.
Well, Chris,
I don't even care if it's Sony, just someone do this.
I think
for
it's
me.
highly possible, just in that Insomniac was a VR studio.
Mm-hmm.
They made
100%.
many games for Oculus that were very highly rated. And so it just seems, actually, now you mention it, it's just obvious. They have all these Spider-Man assets ready to go. They have VR talent. I feel like you might be able to just lock that in. A Insomniac VR Spider-Man spinoff.
I agree. I feel like that's I don't want to say a safe choice, but it's certainly something Sony would be interested in doing. I don't know if they get permission to do it, but they have the talent. The talent happens to be the same studio that makes the Spider-Man game, so it is pretty perfect. And they obviously have a respect of Marvel for doing a good job with those two Spider-Man games so far, and we're getting a third one as well. Peyton Stone did write in asking us what we think, or what Sony franchise we would want to see get the same treatment. You guys had already talked a little bit about this, but I really still feel like there are just older franchises that would make a lot of sense here. Something like Warhawk would make a lot of sense in VR. I mean the PS3 like launch era Warhawk, not the original PS1 one, although that would work too. Colony Wars is an IP I bring up all the time. The space shooting, piloting a ship kind of game like that, just like Valkyrie, which was a really awesome early VR game, and others. So I think there's a way for Sony to explore this, but I think that they should be brave enough to go back and maybe revive a couple of things and make it into something with VR. I think SOCOM is another one of those games that, what did they had that game Firestorm, whatever the hell that game was called. That was really popular. Operation something. Yeah, and it's a co-op shooter. Maybe you do something like that as well. But this unit seems to have the heft to do what we think we want it to do. And that requires it to be tethered to the PS5, which is why I'm so pleased about that cord again, because I just think it's like stapling a PlayStation 5 to your head. It's going to be a lot of power. It's good. It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I'm really happy that we're in a time now where VR has the capability, because there was a time not too long ago where having a VR version of any given game meant a lot of cutbacks. It meant a lot of caveats. It meant a lot of sacrifices and things that I just don't think would have worked well. But now I struggle to imagine a series that couldn't be done well in VR. Like there are definitely some of them. We're not 100% there yet, but this is an exciting time to see Horizon in VR and to see Half-Life in VR and to see this is crazy. This is crazy cool.
Also, GT7 I assume will work with PSVR 2 as well, which will be super neat.
I want to see Siphon Filter.
God, we'll talk about that soon.
Yeah,
believe it or not. Actually, we're going to talk about it right. No, not yet. We'll talk about Bend a little bit now. So, number 3. Let's stay with the first party. We have quite a bit more first party news to get through, actually. Reliable sources indicate the much rumored remake of the original Last of Us for PlayStation 5 may be nearing completion and could launch sometime this year. Word comes by way of both Tom Henderson, the famed games leaker most closely associated with Call of Duty, and trusted website Video Games Chronicle. As you may recall, The Last of Us's remake was a bit of a hot potato. The word is that there wasn't a lot of enthusiasm within PlayStation Studios for the project. It was originally reportedly foisted onto Ben's studio after they finished Days Gone, but they resented being stymied with another team's project yet again, and eventually a still unrevealed San Diego-based first-party team working out of, San Diego-based first-party team was heading the project. Now, word is it's found its way back into Naughty Dog itself. Indeed, in a holiday message to fans, Naughty Dog confirmed it was working on multiple projects, with which we all assumed. We think it's 3, or at least I do. Factions, The Last of Us remake, and perhaps something entirely new. The original The Last of Us, of course, came to PlayStation 3 in 2013 during that console's waning days. It was re-released on PlayStation 4 in 2014, and its sequel came to PS4 in 2020. A big-budget HBO show based on the first game is currently in production, almost certainly the primary cause of this remake, which will be a hot item should the show turn out good, of course, just like what Netflix and The Witcher did to Witcher 3. Chris, let's go to you first on this one. I'm having a hard time getting excited about this because I just don't understand why The Last of Us needed to be remade. The PS4 port is very good, and I don't know. I know they want to have a lot of synergy, probably. I hate that word, with the HBO show. In fact, I am positive that is the cause of this remake. But why not just say, like, no, we have this is the game it's based on. This is what the game looks like. And it still looks great, by the way. It still looks great on PS3. So I feel like this game's got like cursed energy because it feels like no one really wanted to make it. But we still don't even have an official announcement of it yet. So what do you think about this news?
Yeah, I just think this is stupid. I don't see the point in this, like, quite honestly. Like, I think even the second you get to Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 is where I start feeling like you've really got to justify the existence of this remake. Things like Dead Space, even to me, where I was like, Dead Space was so good, but then they show stuff like the tech that they can do. It's like, oh, you can dismember the what were they, xenomorphs? No, not xenomorph. What the hell were they? Necromorphs.
Necromorphs, right? Yeah.
You can dismember the xenomorph, the necromorphs in like very specific ways, and it's crazy. There's like a whole physics system, and we have ambient lighting and ray tracing, and it's like, okay, cool. Okay. You've convinced me. I get it. Other things like the Gears of War Ultimate Edition, I just found completely redundant because the original Gears of War on the new hardware looks pretty damn good still. So I just feel like that's a generation that is arguably totally fine left alone and just up-resed. And then you have The Last of Us, which is probably the best looking game of that generation, I would imagine. I can't think of many that come close.
The Last of Us Part 2, maybe.
Well, that's what I mean, like of the PS3.
Oh, I'm sorry, PS3. Yeah. I apologize.
And then you have a PS4 native version of that game that is even better looking. And then I'm pretty sure that game runs better now than it did, right? Is there a patch for the Last of Us
remastered? I don't know.
So that's what they're holding. That's literally it. That's the only reason they're doing this.
I mean, it could be a. Dustin, do you think this is like a director's cut? You know, like this is going to be their new thing, like their The Last of Us director's cut, but it's just some sort of. They're using the word. People that are knowledgeable with games are using the word remake. That's a big word, and it's not a remaster or retouching or re-release. A remake is a big thing. Remaking The Last of Us is bold. I feel like very dangerous. I don't know.
It's I don't know. Bold and just unnecessary. That's kind of the thing. Where there are things that are very difficult undertakings. Like it's very difficult to remake like a classic game, right? But it's another thing to remake a game that already looks pretty damn good. That doesn't need like I don't even understand how anybody's going to tell the difference. Are they going to change it that much?
I mean, I think we'll be able to tell the difference. I just don't think that we'll
put Pedro Pascal.
I don't think yeah, that's my fear. I mean, I hope that. God,
oh man,
they would.
How likely is that?
They wouldn't dare. There's no way. There's no way that they would do that. I mean, I would love to think they would because it would be hysterical, but there's no way that they would dare do that. But Dustin, your thoughts?
I feel like this just comes down to the synergy, as you said, your favorite word, the synergy. I mean, when this HBO show comes out, there'll be so much interest in the game once again. And I feel like from the base, I don't want to say baseline consumer, people that don't listen to this show, people that aren't in the gaming world, it's like, hey, do you want to play this stinky old version for last gen? Or we've got a brand spanking new product here that's $70. It's the best, highest quality version. It's brand new. People are attracted to just a newer version, right? And I don't know. Part of me wants to be a little more. I agree, it's unnecessary. But think about that this will be at least co-made with Naughty Dog. This will be their first PS5 debut. They'll be able to use the already incredible technology that they had on Last of Us Part 2, apply that and make it even better for a remake. And so I guess the best situation to come out of this is that we have just a truly incredible, jaw-dropping presentation of one of the greatest games of all time. And like I said, I agree, unnecessary, but hopefully it's just incredibly good regardless.
I'm sure. I guess we should separate out. It will be. It will be.
Yeah.
But it does beg the question again, just what is necessary and what is not. I'm not going to front and say I'm not going to play it immediately because I'm going to. But,
yeah.
But yeah,
we'd rather have other
it's
things.
Academic, really. It's academic.
It just bothers me that this thing was thrown around to different studios because nobody wanted to do it, and then Naughty Dog was like, I guess we'll do it. You know, it bothers me that Naughty Dog's debut on PS5 is going to be The Last of Us 1. That's so annoying. It was their send off to the PS3. It was their start on PS4, and now it's their start on PS5 too. Jesus, give it a rest.
Well, this is kind of what I was saying about Horizon, just in the sense of like, let's be careful. Let's not overexpose these things, you know?
Well, at least the VR Horizon is something new and interesting and has the potential to break new ground for, you know, a new technology. Like, we get to see Joel's daughter die in 4K, 120 frames a second.
You and I both know Joel's going to be on the blockchain, but we'll talk about that. Number 4.
It's going to be he's going to get his NFT stolen at the beginning of The Last of Us, and that's going to be the new.
That's what happens to him in those 20 years in between the beginning of Last of Us and then, you know, when we actually see the end of the world. There's that missing 20 years, and he was trying to get his NFT wallet.
Yeah, all my apes gone.
Yeah. Oh, Joel. Number 4. There's some good news here. There's a lot of speculation that Sony has been so quiet about God of War Ragnarok's release timing because it won't make a 2022 release. However, there's some new evidence that may suggest the contrary. Word comes from website Push Square, which reports on 2 fascinating tidbits. The first is that Ragnarok has been rated for launch on PS4 and PS5 by the Saudi Arabian Games Rating Board, an unlikely move for a game not set to come out this year. The second piece of information comes from a bot that scrapes the PlayStation Network for data. God of War Ragnarok's object on PSN, according to a recent scrape, has the game slated for launch on September 30th, 2022, and in classic mystery fashion, that day presents its own benefits and problems. September 30th of this year is a Friday, the day Sony typically releases its AAA exclusives. However, September 30th is also the traditional placeholder date for games released in the third quarter, so it may not be the actual date itself. But signs are pointing to God of War Ragnarok coming to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 this year, likely both after Horizon, Forbidden West, and Polyphony Digital's Gran Turismo 7 are both in the rearview mirror, pardon the pun. Ragnarok, the follow-up to PS4's smash hit 2018 series reboot, comes to Sony-owned Santa Monica studio, the team long behind God of War, tracing back to the first game, which came to PlayStation 2 back in 2005. Chris, what do you think about this? This news seems to indicate what I think is true, which is that God of War will come out this fall. I think that they're just not committing to a date yet. First of all, because why bother? People are going to play it and buy it when it comes out. But also, you want to get through Horizon. I think you at least want to get through Horizon. I'm not so worried about Gran Turismo, but I think you want to get Horizon out the door before you start worrying about God of War. So, what do you think? Do you think we'll see it this year?
Yeah, for sure. I was always of the mind that we were going to see this game in 2022, even when they announced it for 2021. I was like, immediately, it was like, no, this is 200% a 2022 game. And now we see that that's obviously true. And I think it just makes sense. It doesn't seem like a game that would launch in summer. They're definitely not going to launch it close to Horizon Forbidden West. They're not so similar that they would stomp on each other, but they're similar enough that it could feel a little bit weird to see them back to back. Oh, third person open world action. I could see that being a point of criticism, where it's a lot smarter to have, hey, here's Horizon Forbidden West, here's our Forza competition, something new, different, and then you're back to it's kind of like a alternating gears type situation, which I think is smart for pacing, especially in a year like this where it's going to be a lot of stuff to play. And yeah, I think for sure this is a lock for fall. I would be astounded if this got pushed to 2023, and I don't think it will. So
no, I don't think so either. I think it'll come out this fall.
Yeah,
now,
for sure.
Dustin, just traditional fashion, that September 30th date is confounding. I loved it. I love that part of it because September 30th is a Friday. So it's not just some random day, or is it? Because September 30th is always Q3's placeholder date in backends. So, and I know that just from working at IGN all those years. And of course, that's obvious. Same thing with March. You have like March 31st and June 30th and shit like that are the same kinds of days. So it's just impossible to know if that's actually the release date or if it's just their placeholder date. But either way, I don't think it's in the PSN on accident. And so it looks like we'll see Santa Monica's new game this year. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely this year. The bigger question to me is just when we're going to hear them actually announce a final release date. I'm trying to remember what Sony has been doing traditionally. Like, should we expect something, I don't know, around March, or the next time we're going to hear from them be when it comes to big announcements, E3?
Wait, you cut out there. What did you say? The last part?
I was going to, when do we expect to see them? Will it be March or will it be E3? Do they traditionally do something before E3? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't feel like there's any mores anymore.
Yeah,
because
it's all messed up.
Yeah, because everything is messed up. There's no tradition. And I don't really know.
Tradition is dead.
Yeah, like, so it's hard to say. Like, for even Sony releasing a Q4 or a late Q3 exclusive is weird. But I think that's going to happen. So I just think everything's upside down. I don't think we can garner too much from the past right now. Maybe when we settle back in, we'll be able to garner more information from the past. But very similar to the complete disruption that the recession had on the PS3 and 360 era, prolonging them, delaying and canceling a bunch of games and destroying studios. Although not nearly to the extent that destroyed, say, housing. This is different. This is just stasis, Things are just remaining in development for so long. And I also just think that with Santa Monica, I think that they just have a lot to. If I were them, I'd be at around E3. I'd say our game's coming out in September.
Yeah.
What does it matter if you say it now or then? Except for gathering pre-orders. But God of War is going to sell 10 million copies, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Number 5, how about some more good news from Sony? The publisher revealed that PlayStation 4's 2020 exclusive swan song Ghost of Tsushima, which later also came into PlayStation 5, has surpassed 8 million units sold, a major milestone for a new single-player IP. Developed by Sony-owned Sucker Punch, Ghost of Tsushima is a third-person action RPG in the new Sony-esque mold, and is an evolution of the open-world stylings of Sucker Punch that evolved from Sly Cooper on PS3 through Infamous on PS3 and PS4. However, this good news doesn't come without a strange caveat. Word that Days Gone from fellow Sony-owned developer Ben Studio has sold similar numbers, but has mysteriously not been the subject of similar internal or external fanfare. Word of the sales milestone comes from a very reliable source, the game's director, Jeff Ross, who tweeted as much, writing in part, quote, "At the time I left Sony, Days Gone had been out for a year and a half and a month and sold over 8 million copies. It's since gone on to sell more and then sell 1 million plus on Steam. Local studio management always made us feel like it was a big disappointment," end quote. Although not externally acknowledged, it was clear from personnel moves that there was serious acrimony between Sony and Ben, starting with the exit of the studio's co-founder and creative lead, John Garvin, who created and wrote the likes of, as Chris brought up earlier, Siphon Filter. Jeff Ross would later leave as well, and there's no doubt that it's odd for a studio fresh off of an 8 million selling game to not be retained. Word is that Sony turned down Ben's pitch for a sequel to Days Gone, instead pinning a remake of The Last of Us on the team that it didn't want. It's since been confirmed to be working on a new project for PlayStation 5, the nature of which is unknown. Ben, most famous for the aforementioned Siphon Filter franchise across PS1, PS2, and PSP, as well as portable entries in the Resistance and Uncharted franchises, famously took a long time to release Days Gone, likely contributing to its poor internal reputation. It's important to remember there were some 8 years between releases for them, a staggering amount of time. Alex Murphy wrote in and said, "Hi CDC, Merry Holiday and all that jazz. Can we talk about Ghost of Tsushima selling 8 million copies? As you had mentioned before, PlayStation only releases sales numbers when they are good. Well, I think Ghost is a great game. I was not expecting 8 million for the sales. I think we can certainly expect a sequel or a cross-media franchise now. My question is, how do you think it compares to The Last of Us 2 in terms of sales? We have heard very little about The Last of Us 2's sales since launch. Do you think Ghost has outsold it, even with being a new IP and released 1 month later? Would love to hear your thoughts." Unclear about that. What I will say is that I am not surprised Ghost of Tsushima sold 8 million units. It was one of the best-selling games in North America last year. We noticed that on the MPD. It was very quietly chugging. It is still very quietly chugging along. So it doesn't surprise me. We're getting a movie. We already know that. And they reiterated that at CES. We're getting a Ghost of Tsushima movie. We're definitely getting a sequel. I mean, I don't think anyone is surprised by that either. The bigger thing I want to talk about here, Dustin, and I'll go to you first, is what's going on with Days Gone. Now, I'll announce right now, I'm having Jeff Ross on Sacred Symbols Plus next week, and I'm having John Garvin on Sacred Symbols Plus next week. Oh! How do you feel about that, everyone? So the three of us are gonna sit down. John Garvin, the old head of Bend, the founder of Bend, co-founder, and Jeff Ross, longtime employee and director of Days Gone. We're gonna talk about what this all means, and they are, I assume, out of NDA zone now, so I think they're excited to talk. But in the meantime, I feel bad for them. I want to reiterate something that I've said in the past. I remember, Chris, we had gone over this when the game came out. Sony PR fucked Days Gone. And that yellow number on Metacritic, if that number were just green, 80, 81, 82, they would have gotten a sequel. There's no doubt in my mind. It's sending that game out unpatched to disinterested media that doesn't put the time in necessary, doesn't go back to products, doesn't re-review or re-criticize. And that's part of the nature of the game, I understand. But that game was done really dirty. And I know that Chris disagrees, and I totally respect that. I totally respect that a lot of people disagree. But my take is that Days Gone is underrated and shockingly good for what it is, and is a cool idea, and something that I feel like is different than the other open world fare that we see from Sony and elsewhere. And the potential of a motorcycle gang and all this kind of stuff is super cool. And it's disappointing that probably an unholy combination of them taking forever to make the game, and which they did, and they conveniently don't talk about that, which I want to talk to them in person about. And the other thing is that I just think there wasn't as much going for it. It's on Unreal Engine, so they have to pay out a percentage. They put it on PC because I think they wanted to garner some more views. Bend is not really a very well-respected studio internally, and that's clear because they tried to give them the Last of Us remake after they made Days Gone, which sold 8 million copies in a year and a half. So something is clearly wrong with the relationship between that studio and its parent, and I would keep a close eye on that because that might not be good for them. Yeah. I don't know. There's no one there to protect them anymore. So, or, and I have good friends there. Like my friend Eric Jensen has risen up the ranks and is a lead there now. And he's a great guy. And he's worked on games going back to Siphon Filter. But losing your leaders is tough. Losing them suspiciously after a big game is weird. The fact that you would let Jeff Ross go, who directed a big game, is weird. The fact that you would let John Garvin walk away, he might have been fired. I mean, I want to kind of look into that. I heard there was like fights and all sorts of crazy shit going on there. So anyway, Dustin, I'm talking a lot. What do you think about this intrigue around Days Gone and how it seems kind of unfair that it didn't get any love, even though it sold the same amount,
Right. Well, there's an important factor to consider also. I don't know the answer to this, so maybe it's just completely hypothetical, but there's also a matter of selling how many copies at a certain price. I don't think Days Gone has really got a little cheap when they were getting ready to release the PS5 version, but I'm guessing most of those 8 million copies, or maybe not full retail value, but much higher, I don't know if Days
certainly,
Gone.
Certainly a relevant component is money.
Yeah, relevant component. That and in combination, Colin, with what you said about how long it took to make that game, I'd be curious to see. I don't know how the math works when it comes to the economics of games like this, but I would imagine how many years was it, Colin? 8 years?
Yeah, they released Golden Abyss for Uncharted Golden Abyss, which is a Vita launch game that was ready for launch in Japan. So that was December 2011. And then they didn't release this game until the spring of 2019. So, yeah, it's
so,
and there were canceled things in there. Like they ported Golden Abyss to PS3, but didn't release it, etc.
Yeah. But so, 8 million copies at not all full price, running a studio for 8 years, there's no way that Days Gone was as profitable as Ghost of Tsushima by a long shot.
No, I would imagine. I was talking to someone behind the scenes and we were discussing, and I noted, I wouldn't be surprised, as shocking as this is, if Days Gone was more expensive to make, which is pretty damning.
Yeah.
But so I know there's more to it, but I just feel like Sony almost had a synchronistic IP that was going to bring back Siphon Filter and everything. That's, I think, the biggest problem with it is they almost got it. Days Gone takes place in the same universe. It was pretty close.
They also had to give a cut to Epic for
that's what I know. I think that must be a piece of it too.
Yeah,
but they shouldn't have let them use a third party engine. I was confused by that from the beginning. I know that they said that the zombie tech or whatever wouldn't work on whatever they were using internally, but I don't think you're going to see any Sony games made outside of Unreal and their internal stuff anymore. And it's because they own a piece of Epic now. It's different, as opposed to the contract they had with them pre-investment is probably different. So, Chris, what do you think about this drama? First, about Ghost of Tsushima's great sales. We all love Ghost of Tsushima. It's an awesome game. So congratulations to Sucker Punch. But unfortunately for them, this is kind of overshadowed by what some might see as spilled milk, but what I still feel like is quite compelling and worth investigating. So what do you think?
I think I'm going to be very curious to hear your conversations with these people, because that's really the only time we're going to be getting some concrete answers about this thing. But I don't know, man. Days Gone was not my cup of tea. Like, it's just not my kind of game. I thought for sure that had something to do with the state that we got it in. It was definitely a way bigger mess than it was way later on. And when we were playing it, it was kind of a disaster. But even just from the gameplay style and just like open world, I was just kind of fatigued on that stuff. Zombies were fatigued to me.
Freakers, man. I had freakers.
The whole, they called them freakers. That bothered the hell out of me. I'm neurotic where that kind of thing will bother me to my core. And I don't know. It's just a me thing. But I do think that the way that they were treated internally was not the way that they should have been treated. I thought at the very least they deserved a second shot, because even when we were talking about the game when it was new, I think I brought up the fact that, there are parts of this that are cool, and I think a sequel would be really, really dope. I think it would flesh out a lot of these things. It would kind of iron out a lot of the creases. It would get a lot of the things that I didn't care so much for kind of out of the spotlight, so that the spotlight can shine on what was really cool about it, which was a mechanic that I never really got to, which was the horde stuff. And what little I experienced of it was kind of bogged down by like an inconsistent frame rate, really choppy presentation, really just awkward story. And I feel like a sequel could have done a lot to rectify that and turn that series into something that was really special. I think it could have turned it into something that was really seminal for PlayStation. But instead, like we talked about, they were saddled with some nonsense project that no one wants to do. Not even the studio who made the thing wants to do it, to the point where they saddled it around. That sucks. That's a real shame. And I'm really curious. I'm super, super interested to hear their sides of the story when you talk.
Oh, yeah. We have much to discuss.
Well,
that'll shine a lot of light on this.
Yeah. And I think it's important, Colin. I mean, I don't know how much you want to pry with them, but I know that our audience knows that was a breaking point for Sacred Symbols and their relationship with Sony.
Yeah, we could probably get into that, because I bet you. Let me be careful here. I know people at lots of studios within Sony. I know that PR talks to these studios about our show, and they don't like us. So
thanks for listening. We appreciate it. How's it going?
They are the reason why, when we were going to do an episode of Wipeout Pure. Now, why do I keep saying that? Wipeout Rush. Wish we were doing an episode about Wipeout Pure. Wipeout Rush. And we were like having a nice cordial conversation with the dev, and then they were like, we have to go talk to Sony, and we never heard from them again. So yeah, I'll be asking all the great questions. Don't worry about that. It's funny. Someone scooped me on this a little bit because David Jaffe's going to talk to him first. Unfortunately, this is happening before we're recording, so I'm not going to be able to incorporate whatever they say there. I'm also not going to watch it because I kind of want to go in fresh, although I'm sure the big news will be written about. But I must admit, David Jaffe's the only person in the world that can scoop me, and I wouldn't be mad at him. Love you, David. Hope you're doing well. Is there something else I wanted to say about this? Oh, yeah, just to kind of go off of what you were saying, Chris, real quick before we go into the next item. I think the amount of disrespect shown to Ben is one of the things that I really want to get into with them. And I think that's
for sure.
Maybe earned, maybe unearned. I think from their point of view, they were like, listen, guys, we made this series Siphon Filter. It's no longer relevant. We made a great PSP game in Resistance Retribution, one of the greatest PSP games many consider. We made one of the great Vita games in Uncharted Golden Abyss. We did exactly what you asked us to do. And then we made a new IP, and it was a big struggle and all that. And we got it out, but it was good. And people liked it, and it sold well. And for them to, no wonder Jeff Ross left, because they went to him and said, like, hey, man, you're going to direct Last of Us. And they're like, but we just made our own game, and it was successful. Why wouldn't you let us flex our muscles? Why do we have to be, as we noted, they would call themselves Naughty Dog North because they're in Oregon. And that's just fucked. And I really need to know more about it. And I think we're going to learn more about it. So stay tuned for all of that, my friends. Now let's get into the real nitty gritty of shit I hate. Number 6. Unfortunately, but perhaps not surprisingly, beloved Japanese publisher and developer Square Enix is ready to embrace the NFT, or non-fungible token craze. Word comes by way of a lengthy letter from the company's president, Yosuke Matsuda, who wrote the following in part, quote, another term that gained quick currency in 2021 was NFT, or non-fungible token. The advent of NFTs using blockchain technology significantly increased the liquidity of digital goods, enabling the trading of a variety of such goods at high prices and sparking conversations the world over. I see 2021 not only as Metaverse year one, but also NFTs year one, given that it was a year in which the NFTs were met with a great deal of enthusiasm by a rapidly expanding user base. However, we do observe examples here and there of overheated trading in NFT-based digital goods with somewhat speculative overtones. Okay. Regardless to the observed value of the content provided. This obviously is not an ideal situation, but I expect to see an eventual right sizing in digital goods deals as they become more commonplace among the general public, with the value of each available content corrected to their estimated worth, and I look for them to become as familiar as dealings in physical goods. End quote. Perhaps not surprisingly, this news was met with a fair amount of outrage from people who are afraid of NFTs infiltrating and affecting the digital spaces they care about and dwell in. However, companies the size of Square Enix are not going to ignore the financial realities of tapping into the potential NFT market, which is yet to bear any meaningful fruit in any entertainment medium. Therefore, it shouldn't come as a surprise that fellow Japanese publisher Konami is also getting in on NFTs, which are stated to be sold soon. And they're selling things from Castlevania and stuff. I'm like, oh! Wikipedia describes an NFT as, quote, a unique and non-interchangeable unit of data stored on a blockchain, a form of a digital ledger. NFTs can be associated with reproducible digital files such as photos, videos, and audio. NFTs use a digital ledger to provide a public certificate of authenticity of proof of ownership, but do not restrict the sharing or copying of the underlying digital files, end quote. All right. Chris, let's start with you. I'm pleasantly surprised recently by how vitriolic the NFT conversation has become, because I think so many people realize it is fucking bullshit. And
Colin, you don't understand it.
No,
please send us a message.
Please write me a novella, so that you might explain it to me. Now, but Chris, I do want to ask, like, I want to back up. I'm skeptical of cryptocurrency, the whole blockchain thing. I'm skeptical of it. In fact, Bitcoin has gone up and down like 15% the last 5 days. Just not very safe commodity. Definitely gambling. But I see the salience in cryptocurrency infinitely more than I see any value in NFTs. To be clear to people, you don't own the trademark. You don't own the patent. You don't own anything but the digital representation, one digital representation that the certificate says is the original one. Like, anyone cares. It is not IP ownership or licensing or anything legal. And I just imagine these different companies succumbing to young, enthusiastic people that are working their way up the corporate chain. And these older people are like, oh, well, Bitcoin was $100 and now it's $30,000, But I feel like this is just straight up destructive pyramid scheme shit. And I hope people are seeing through it. What do you think?
I every time this conversation happens, I feel instantly drunk because I just feel tired and drained and just annoyed that this is happening at the scale that it's happening, and how quick companies like Ubisoft were to just before the overwhelming majority of people even knows what this is.
Because they want to be. They want to be. I mean, I'm saying, man, these companies are so eager to not miss.
I know. But man, but they have missed though. Is the thing? It's like, there was something recently about, I think, the developers of Stalker 2.
Oh yeah. They had they were going to do 3 NPC NFTs that like blew up in their face.
Yeah, and then everybody was like, we hate this. We want you to die. And then they were like, oh, okay, well, we don't want that. So they undid it. And you have to understand, if you're listening to this in for some reason you're listening to this in 2046 or whatever, and you're walking around with your VR headset looking at all your beautiful NFTs. What we're seeing right now is like mostly just horrible art. It's just horrible drawings of flash animated monkeys looking. I can't conceptualize the value. Like, it is so inconceivably valueless to me that I don't understand why it's even being taken remotely seriously as a conversation. I think this is, like you said, massive pyramid scheme. It's just a bunch of like tech bros who are like, hey, this is valuable. And then they sold it to people who had a lot of money and didn't know any better, because chances are people who have a lot of money now just kind of came into it. There's a lot of people who's like, I was born with $2 trillion. I might as well buy an NFT for no reason. Why did Eminem buy an ape?
Yeah, I saw that for like $400,000 in Ethereum or something like that.
It's insane. There was some guy who got all of his apes stolen.
I saw that.
And that was
awesome.
It was so funny.
Awesome.
It was one of my favorite tweets ever.
He paid something like $30,000 in ransom.
$38,000 to get one of his apes back. I remember it because the tweet was hilarious. It said, all my apes gone. I loved it. But he paid. That's a lot of money, dude. That's so much money to pay for an ape. Not even a chimp that you can like hang out with.
It's not even cool like Donkey Kong. It's like stupid.
Yeah, it's a stupid ape. I hate
it sucks.
Man.
No, it sucks. It totally sucks. Dustin, what do you think?
I understand the gold rush right now, and this comes back to us talking about Facebook rebranding itself as Meta and really banking everything on this idea of the metaverse. And there's this idea then of, if we're going to start living in virtual worlds, I'm not preaching that. I'm just saying that this is the idea. One of the biggest companies in the world is trying to sell everybody on living in virtual worlds. And in some ways, we already are, just not in VR. We're living on Discord. You're listening to podcasts from the internet. We already live in the virtual world. They're just putting a name to it. And so the idea of digital ownership is something that is, I guess, important if you subscribe to this idea. And while, right now there's the big thing about apes, and don't take this as me as defending NFTs. Obviously, the ape thing is dumb, but I think that there is a larger idea of NFTs, but where it doesn't necessarily make sense to me is that we already own a lot of digital goods, right? I have a Call of Duty gun skin or whatever. I own that digital good, sort of. I guess this is like sort of another level, I don't understand why it needs to be on the blockchain for some of this stuff, unless, and this is an interesting idea, is let's say cosmetics in games are tied to the blockchain and become NFTs. So does that mean if I buy a skin in Fortnite or whatever, that I can sell it to someone afterwards if I decide I don't want it? Is that how that could work? Because then I could at least see a value to the consumer. But then again, you're also getting to this idea of creating artificial scarcity for digital goods that can just be copied. So I understand the gold rush aspect. You see, like I said, Facebook, Meta, living in the digital world. How do we create ownership in a place where stuff can just be copied? And I guess that's kind of the catch-22 there.
Yeah, it's not only. I know people like to own people, own other people in Twitter and whatever by being like, oh, here's a picture of your NFT. Like now I have it. And it's like, that's funny, but
it's hilarious.
The problem is the same problem I have with cryptocurrency. It's just that NFTs even go further with this problem, which is the United States dollar is backed by the American military. It's backed by the United States Central Bank, and it's backed by 240 years of use, right? Like there's a market for the USD. It is the world currency. There's a market for the Chinese yuan and the euro and the pound and all these different things. This idea of a decentralized small L libertarian thing where currency has no value intrinsic to a state is something that's never happened. And until it's proof of that happening, you're still going to have to make your Bitcoin into US dollars. Your Ethereum is going to become US dollars. If you can't get those into US dollars or euro, then it's valueless. And that is the problem. That's why it won't work. And in my opinion, like why it ultimately is not a real store of value. As I've said before, if you want to buy oil futures, you can buy oil futures and then you can literally take the oil and put it in a warehouse. You can go buy gold and put it in your safe. And oil goes in your car. And gold is used in all sorts of technologies and jewelry and thousands of years of human history with gold. No one knows what the blockchain is, frankly. And it's not the problem with legality with NFTs is it takes it even further. I own Last Stand Media's name. I own the moon logo, right? I own the arrow logo. I own the term sacred symbols. This is all backed by the US government and trademark law and legalities here. I guess you can go buy a CLS Moon NFT, and I guess I could sell you one, but it's meaningless because I can still do whatever I want with it. And so what do you really own? Because people are trying to say, what about the Mona Lisa? Or what about it's like the Mona Lisa is a piece of art, physical piece of art made by a master with provenance and story behind it. This is a fucking picture of an ape. Let's not get confused about what means something and what doesn't. And let's not try to conflate fine art with, Da Vinci with whatever this is. It's an insult. It's ridiculous.
It's just so dystopian to me. There's like something really eerily Matrix about it, where it's like, I want to spend all my time in the fake world because the things that we are making to fill that fake world out are actively destroying the environment.
That's a whole other thing. Is like the environmental cost, which
there are already like plenty of environmental problems already. Like the idea that look, I'm willing to be like, hey, my car isn't the healthiest thing, but it helps me do things. This ape doesn't help me do anything. It's just a stupid ape. And I just got to sit here and it is so freaky to me that at some point, I don't know when it was exactly, but the table kind of flipped where the virtual world is a lot more real than the real world is. And all that really needs to change to really make that stick is convincing the majority of people that that's true. And that's what freaks me out. If like the majority of people are convinced that NFTs have value, then they do. And that's horrifying because it's so stupid that I feel like it's almost like idiocracy. You know, where it's like we've lost the plot. It's
participate
over.
At your own
That's
risk. I mean, I've said internally, I've said to my accountant or my financial advisor rather, and others, I'm like, if Bitcoin goes to below 10,000, I'm buying it. But I'm not buying it because I think it's worth anything. I'm buying it because I'm speculating. And as long as you understand that that's exactly what you're doing, then Godspeed, my friend.
Right.
You know. So I'm not saying I'll take advantage of a fool. Sure. You know, I'll buy Bitcoin and hold on to it and put it in my and let someone else buy it for 20,000 in a few years. Sure, it doesn't mean it's worth anything. You know, like
right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it just means somebody gave you money. It's literally it's literally all it means.
So we'll see. I just say, you know, I know there are some crypto bros in there. Do not write in. You're very welcome here. We love you. You're very welcome here. We have no problem with you being here. No more novellas. Okay. I actually started copying and pasting the same response to everyone that was writing in about it. So I appreciate your input, but it's just we're at an impasse, and we'll see.
And if you want to hear us not talk about this anymore, just you know what to do. Stop making it a story.
That's right.
Make sure this doesn't continue happening. Then you won't have to hear our uneducated takes about it.
I don't think my take is very uneducated about it.
Well, from their perspective.
Sure. It's certainly. Well, it doesn't matter. I don't even want to get into it. I should really do a Sacred Symbols Plus episode about it at some point. Get someone on.
You should.
Okay. Number 7. While it's unclear what's going on with Final Fantasy XVI when it comes to receiving more information, nonetheless release timing, what we do know is that the game is behind schedule. Word comes by way of the game's producer, Naoki Yoshida, who wrote the following in part, quote, Final Fantasy XVI has amassed a sizable team composed of talented creators from around the world. However, in an effort to offset the effects of COVID, we've had to decentralize that workforce by permitting staff to tackle their assignments from home. This has unfortunately hampered communication from the Tokyo office, which in turn has led to delays in, or in extreme cases, cancellation of asset deliveries from our outsourced partners. That said, we have spent much of 2021 addressing this issue and hope to see its impact to a minimum by the new year, allowing us to better focus on the tasks at hand, increasing graphic resource quality, putting the finishing touches on cutscenes, and conducting overall graphical optimization. Our primary goal is to now be as hands-on with the game as possible in order to see it fully polished, end quote. As such, a full reveal of the game is now scheduled for spring of 2022. Final Fantasy XVI, in development since 2016 and led by the aforementioned Naoki Yoshida, the well-respected, somewhat legendary operator widely credited with saving Final Fantasy XIV, will be the first mainline Final Fantasy game since 2015's tortured Final Fantasy XV, once known as Final Fantasy Versus 13. It is a PlayStation 5 exclusive at launch. I'm really looking forward to this game. Chris, I won't even bother talking to you about it, Dustin. Let's get weebish for a second.
Yeah.
I think this game is exciting. We don't know very much. I was looking at it last night, seeing like what we knew. Obviously, that opening video is really cool. We're getting back to that old feel of Final Fantasy we haven't seen really since Final Fantasy 12, I would say. Although it's in Final Fantasy 14, of course. And I feel like we might see this game this year. I have this weird outside feeling based on the way he's talking about it that the game is done. I mean, it seems like it's content complete. That means that they must be playing it. Alpha, maybe? Pre-alpha? They're talking only about graphical optimizations. All 3 things he says that they're working on are about graphics. He says graphical resource quality, finishing touches on cutscenes, overall graphical optimization. And he wants to see it fully polished. That doesn't sound like a game that's I'm sure it's an active development. I don't want to say that. It doesn't sound like a game that is being made anymore, but rather refined. What do you think?
Yeah, it sounds like usually those types of polishing things are what's done last. I mean, spring 2022, then for a winter release that November, that would be pretty exciting. I think that for me, the most exciting aspect of this game is just that as much as I love and hate Nomura, he's been dominating the Final Fantasy space for a very long time with Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and you can even throw in Kingdom Hearts 3 if you loosely say that's just a part of that chain, and the upcoming Final Fantasy Origins game. He's all over that as well. So to have someone other than him involved in a big budget Final Fantasy title like this outside of Final Fantasy Online, Final Fantasy 14 is very, very exciting. It feels somewhat like it's somewhere between a return to form and being incredibly fresh. And I am just, this is one of those games that after Elden Ring is out, I think this will become my most anticipated title.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm really interested to just see more. I want to see how it works. I want to see how much Final Fantasy VII Remake influenced this. I really liked Final Fantasy VII Remake, but I would like something a little more traditional. Again, I'm not saying that they're going to have turn-based battles or anything. I think that they realize they can do that with Dragon Quest, but I don't know. We'll find out what happens here. Chris, you don't have anything to add to this, I assume, before we move on.
Not really, no. I don't know much about Final Fantasy. I think it looks cool. I think it looks fun to play, like actually, like the moment-to-moment gameplay, but for what little we've seen of it. But I don't know anything about Final Fantasy, so I'll probably wait till I play it. But I am kind of looking forward to it, to be honest. I just don't know anything about it.
Fair enough. Number 8. In a move that surprises no one, Chinese mega corporation Tencent has announced its next moves as it expands heavily into the Western games market. First, news that occurred right after we recorded our last episode in December. Tencent has purchased the developer Turtle Rock, best known for its Left 4 Dead games, as well as the recently released co-op shooter Back 4 Blood. Turtle Rock, which was founded in the early aughts working on Counter-Strike and Half-Life expansions, hit pay dirt with the Valve-published Left 4 Dead in 2008, which never came to PlayStation, nor did its sequel the following year. In 2015, Turtle Rock partnered with 2K on the ill-fated asynchronous multiplayer game Evolve. However, Tencent isn't stopping there. The company also announced a partnership with independent studio Remedy to create a co-op game currently codenamed Vanguard. It will be free to play with the rights to the IP held by Remedy, and it's being built on Unreal for PS4 and PS5 as well as other platforms. While not as egregious as the Turtle Rock deal, Tencent's cooperation with Remedy places it in a small group of current publishing partners doing business with the studio. Remedy is also working with Epic on Alan Wake 2, Smilegate on Crossfire X, 505 Games on Control, and a separate game codenamed Condor, and now Tencent. This is they're staying busy over there. I unless you guys have anything to add, I'll leave this because again, I think I'm doing the conversation February 1st. I'm having a guy named Sale Lilly on who is an expert in this space to talk about Tencent. And we've hit on it so many times that I feel like we're just being redundant at this point. But I wanted to let people know that that had nonetheless happened.
Yeah. I would just say that there's a little bit of red flags for me for Remedy being involved in this many projects. It reminds me of, I don't know how many years ago at this point when Platinum was involved with so many projects,
like
and you started to see
Xbox and
So hopefully they can pull it off. But yeah,
that's a lot. It's definitely a lot.
It is a lot. All right, number 9. In sad news that hit the sports world over the holiday break, legendary football coach and analyst John Madden passed away at the age of 85. Coach of the Oakland Raiders during its legendary 1970s era that culminated with a victory in Super Bowl 11, Madden would become world famous for broadcasting over the following nearly 40 years. His relevance to our show, of course, comes in the form of Madden NFL Football, publisher Electronic Arts' yearly American football production that sits among the best-selling franchises in industry history. Running each and every year since 1990, Madden first came to PlayStation in the form of Madden 96, launching on PS1 in the fall of 95. At last check-in in 2018, Madden had sold some 130 million copies and is likely over the 150 million mark at this point, making it one of only around 20 franchises to have sold more than 100 million copies since the so-called start of gaming in 1972. I know you guys don't care about football. I won't ask you about this, but I'm a huge football fan, and when John Madden passed away, it really hit me. It was really sad. I was really sad by it. He's really dominant figure in football, and his iconic stuff with the telestrator, especially when he would draw on the screen and stuff, is like hysterical. Like he would circle everything and like just draw so much on the screen you couldn't even tell what it was. He was awesome and very self-aware, very knowledgeable, loved the game. And he's one of the people that's had an indelible effect on video games. It's not just that he made the Madden game. It's that the Madden game was powerful enough to carry his name and that it helped sell it. It's that a lot of football games were 7-on-7 or 8-on-8 during that era. He insisted on the real thing, 11-on-11. He was the one that said, this is what Madden football is, the real thing. It's how a lot of people, including me, learned what football was all about. I didn't come from a family, except for my uncle, that really cared about football. I learned plays and formations and positions and became in love with the game by playing Madden on SNES and later on PS1 and PS2. And so, rest well, John Madden. And there's a lot of speculation that Madden NFL 23, well, he'll be the cover star, which it would be awesome. And I think that's
That would be
almost
cool.
inevitable, I feel like.
Yeah, that would be like really nice. Now I don't know much about football, but I knew that was a big deal when it happened. Just by you have a guy who's named after, or who has a series named after him. It's not exactly small potatoes, especially if it's Madden football,
Right, exactly.
where people associate that guy's last name with the game more so than football, because football means different things to different countries. So it's almost kind of crazy that like Madden is more associated with football than football is. So I think it's a big deal. Now him and Tom Clancy get to look down and watch a bunch of companies just put out
That's
games
funny as hell.
under their names.
There should be like like one of those funny illustrations of like them looking down, like Tom Clancy, John Madden. We need like one or two more dead game developers. Maybe when Miyamoto goes. Now a lot of people were saying that I predicted this, and I did, but it's sad because it was like a few months ago where I was like, John Madden is going to die soon, and I didn't mean anything by it, but I'm sorry to the Madden family for that.
I did that with Betty White recently.
She owned herself though, didn't she? I mean, she had the audacity to do that People magazine.
Herself.
She tempted fate at the last minute. Why would you do that? She was so close, weeks away from being 100. She does this People magazine cover about Betty White at 100 and this whole blah, and she dies before she hits 100. It's like, Betty.
Got him.
Shouldn't have been talking shit, wow. Betty. In the words of Cat Williams.
I saw Cat Williams in a Buffalo Wild Wings at 2 a.m.
Awesome.
in Burbank, California.
That's awesome.
And it was the strangest interaction. I think it was like that's Cat Williams. He's like, yeah. And he walked out. I was like, oh my God.
I love Buffalo Wild Wings. The garlic hot sauces. Oh my God, so good. Okay.
Garlic hot sauce.
Yeah, they have like a garlic hot sauce. Yeah,
they have
just dip fries in it and shit. It's good. Yeah.
I got to say real quick, I discovered that the Chick-fil-A sauce that you can get at home in the bottle, it's very close to the honey roasted barbecue sauce there. It's been a life-changing thing for me having this sauce in my home. Just
I'm pleased to hear that.
Everything's different now.
This pleases me to hear.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Rest in peace, John.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Definitely. R.I.P. my friend. Kind of outside rooting for the Raiders now for the rest of the year. Not actively, because I don't really actively root for any team that's not the Jets, but with he's associated so heavily with the Raiders, it would be good to see them do well in his name now. All right, number 10. If you recall, and you almost certainly don't, we last discussed the dormant gaming franchise Klonoa in detail back in mid-2021, when it was last reported to be percolating based on some trademarks. However, mum's been the word ever since until now. As reported by website Gamatsu, new recently filed trademarks indicate Klonoa will indeed live again, likely in the form of a re-release compilation called Klonoa Fantasy Reverie Series with a P. I was surprised he got away with that, considering SaGa owns Phantasy Star. This trademark was filed in the US, Canada, and Europe in recent weeks, while you'll recall similar trademarks were filed in Japan in both 2019 and again in 2021. Klonoa, owned by publisher Bandai Namco, which was simply then Namco, began in 1997 with the PS1 platformer subtitled Door to Phantom Isle. It was followed by a proper sequel on PS2 in 2001 and a third game in 2008 exclusive to Wii, and it seems likely this yet unannounced collection will combine these three titles, perhaps interspersed with other interstitial games that came to the likes of Game Boy Advance. The reason I wanted to spin this one out is just to say I'm intrigued by this. I remember always seeing Klonoa. I recall renting the first one on PS1. I never owned it. I never played the PS2 or Wii one. But it's got that late, if you look at the Klonoa cat, I think it's a cat. I'm like, oh my God, this thing is so 1997, 1998. I must play this. And so I'm kind of looking forward to this. It's clearly happening. I just don't know when it's going to happen, but wanted to throw that out there. You guys don't have history with Klonoa, right? As I recall,
I know nothing of this man, this creature,
this man,
this hat wearing, long-eared creature.
Yeah,
I can't remember what my experience was with it. I think a cousin of mine had it. It was a long time ago. This is PS1.
Yeah, PS1,
right?
and then a PS2 sequel. So, I never even played. It was a very early PS2 game, like 2001. I never played that for sure, but I definitely rented the first one.
Yeah, I was around the first one in some capacity when it was being played. I remember it being kind of stricken by the fact that it was kind of 2.5D the first time I had seen that, where you kind of it's a 2D game, but it moves it weaves in and out of this 3D space. So sometimes your what you're seeing in the screen is directly over and perpendicular to a section that you went on before, and it was very cool. It was very 3D and very, very interesting, and I thought the art style was cool. I remember liking the music a lot, but I don't remember playing through it. And this will be fun. I'm excited to actually play through it this time, because it always looked cool to me.
Klonoa. Last seen in 2008. All right.
Also good fake word.
Yeah, no, that is a good word. And I don't hate the character design. It just is. I feel like Klonoa would wear Jenkos, and I want to know more about that.
For sure.
Like, you remember it was God, who was it? Who played Scott in Austin Powers? Why can't I remember his name?
Oh, Seth Green.
Wasn't he a character in that movie Can't Hardly Wait, and he had like goggles on just for no reason, like at a party? It's very 90s like that. I need more Klonoa. It brings me back. It makes me want to watch Scream, and
makes me want to listen to Christopher Cross on my Walkman.
Oh man, sailing, it's a jam. All right, number 11. If you're a PlayStation Plus and or a PlayStation Now subscriber, you'll be pleased to know that there are new offerings on both services for you right now. Over on PS Plus, your new monthly so-called free downloads provide a nice variety. PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 alike will receive the racing game Dirt 5, first released in 2020 from Codemasters before it was owned by EA, as well as co-op FPS Deep Rock Galactic from Ghost Ship Games, which is a brand new release. Meanwhile, over on PlayStation 4, Omega Force developed Musou, Persona 5 Strikers, based, of course, on the popular Atlas-developed JRPG Persona 5, is also being offered. Persona 5 Strikers first launched in 2021 in the West. Meanwhile, streaming and library-driven service PlayStation Now also has some new offerings. The biggest of the bunch is no doubt the 2017 PlayStation 4 port of the 2006 PlayStation 2 JRPG Final Fantasy XII from Square Enix. Also included is NetherRealm's 2019 fighting game Mortal Kombat 11, co-op roguelike Fury Unleashed, open-world survival game Unturned, clever time-bending 2D platformer Super Time Force Ultra, which I believe I reviewed at IGN, and the once popular PC and tablet game Kerbal Space Program. And finally, number 12 is a wrap-up. Website Komatsu reports Brawler River City Girls, which is awesome, which came to PS4 in 2019, is coming to PS5 on January 18th. Strategy RPG Relayer comes to PS4 and PS5 on March 24th, and survival horror game Phobia St. Dinfa Hotel launches on PS4 and PS5 sometime later in 2022. The website also revealed that much delayed game Weird West has been delayed yet again and will now come to PS4 on March 31st. The website likewise reports that surprisingly popular racing game Hot Wheels Unleashed has surpassed 1 million copies sold. And finally, website Push Square reports that Pokemon-like game Monster Crown, which inexplicably missed its release date late last year, is still en route to PS4 at some point this year. I will also note, boys, just as an update that has happened since we started recording the show, E3 is online only again this year. It has been announced.
And it's dead.
So E3
is it.
Yeah, E3 is finished.
It's done.
Yeah, I would agree. So we'll have more to say about that maybe when there's more to say about that. But in the meantime, we'll see how that online-only show goes. ESA holding on by a thread. All right. Boys, as tradition dictates, it's time to end each episode with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience over on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. Come join us over there. You can get on our Discord. You can get early ad-free access to all of our shows, access to Sacred Symbols Plus, submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas, get your name in the credits, and otherwise be nearest to us that you can possibly be digitally. Maybe we'll give you an NFT one day. Ryan Garcia wrote in and said, "Hey guys, I finally understand why Tom Holland got cast as Nathan Drake. I recently started volunteering at a youth Sunday school teacher for my church, teaching 16 to 18-year-olds. We have been pulling get-to-know-you questions out of a hat as icebreakers before each lesson. This week was, which celebrity would you want to spend the day with? To my surprise, all 6 of the girls in my class said Tom Holland. They then proceeded to gush about how much they love him, with one girl even proclaiming that she'd find a way to marry him one day. I never realized how popular Tom Holland really is. I finally understand why Sony thought casting him was a good idea, despite Tom being a terrible choice for the role. Regardless, the girls in my class will now be seeing the Uncharted movie opening night, excited to see his bulging biceps and stoicism on full display. Well done. Thanks, and have a great show. Very well done. Thank you for writing in, Ryan." So I watched him come. He came out to talk during CES. Now, I must say, I'm embarrassed by this because I didn't know. Tom Holland's British? How did I not know that? How did I not know that?
Because Spider-Man isn't British, and that's probably how you've heard him the most.
I started talking to him, and I was like, wait, what the fuck? What? So I don't know. I'm totally out of the loop. I forgot to tell you guys this though. This is really cute. I have 6 nieces and nephews, as I sometimes discuss. My nephew Dash is a big PlayStation fan. He likes playing on his PS4, his PS5. And he said his favorite present over the holiday was he was wearing it when I came over. And I was like, is that what I think it is? He was wearing a ring, like Nathan Drake's ring around his neck, like on like a leather thing. And he's like, this was my favorite present this year. And I was like, oh my God. Like, and he's excited about the movie. So I'm trying to recalibrate not my expectations, because my expectations are the movie's going to be bad, but my thoughts on it. Chris, let me go to you first. Are we underestimating Tom Holland's gravitas? It's clear Sony wants to be in business with him because he's not only doing Spider-Man, but he's also now doing Drake, although I think that's going to be a one-off.
Yeah, no. Tom Holland's huge. He's like a huge actor. Like he's crarazy.
Well, I guess I should reframe. Like, but am I underestimating his import to the brand and to the names that Sony is leveraging right now? Because I guess I just didn't. Him being miscast, I guess I didn't realize that there was a math equation saying like his miscasting doesn't really matter because he's Tom Holland, which is relevant, I guess, to me.
Yeah, probably. I think he was cast because the faith in video game movies is probably not super high, and they just want a lot of eyes on the film. And the best way to do that would be to cast somebody who's close-ish to the character, but the primary goal is to get somebody popular that people are excited to see. And I could see that being an equation. I mean, Tom Holland's a pretty big name. It would make sense that was something that they might have considered. I actually like him as an actor. Like he's
I'm not sure that I've seen him in anything other than one of the Spider-Man films. I don't know that I should go look and see what he's even been in.
Yeah, he's been in a couple things. Like he was when he was like a really young kid. He was in this movie. I can't remember the name of it. But he was pretty good in that.
1996.
Yeah,
Christ.
But I think
you're dying, Colin.
I know. 1996.
You're withering. You're withering away.
That's fucking crazy.
I don't know. I think it was a calculated thing for sure. Because I don't know how you cast him, really. Yeah, the best casting for me would be Nathan Fillion, but he's too old.
Yeah, I'm looking at his. Actually, I haven't seen a goddamn thing he's been in. I mean, I guess I didn't realize he is in so many things as Spider-Man that's no doubt how I know him.
Yeah.
But I also didn't realize he was so young. He's 25. Mm-hmm. Holy shit. Okay. Well, Tom Holland, Dustin, what do you think? Is he important to the PlayStation brand now that he's kind of, because he's not our Spider-Man, but he is Sony's Spider-Man. He's not our Drake, but he's Sony's Drake. He's almost like a mirror image of what we know as two very famous characters in our sphere.
Right. I like Tom Holland. I think he's a charming, attractive young gentleman from what I've seen. He's there's lots of great moments of him in interviews being very genuine. He comes off as a very kind guy. And so I can't knock him too hard. But I think that what Ryan brings up is right on the money. I mean, he has tons of fans who will go and see him just because of who he is. And something else I want to point out, and I think we've pointed this out before, but the three of us are kind of curmudgeons, really. And I think that there's a lot of Uncharted fans that are excited to see this movie.
Oh my God.
They may not, I think they might not be optimistic either, but it's Uncharted and it's a movie. My friend of mine and listener, what's that?
I said, thanks for that. You're like, it's Uncharted and it's a movie.
Yeah. Well, that's
the pitch. It's on the poster.
It sounds like a joke, but it's not. It's Uncharted. It's another Uncharted product. It's a movie. Cool. For most people, maybe not most, but a lot of Uncharted fans, that's all it needs to be. A friend of mine, listener of the show, friend Corey, shout out. I know he's listening right now. He loves Uncharted. I believe he has an Uncharted tattoo on his arm, and he's excited to see this movie as well. So part of me, when I was thinking about that, is like, maybe these things are very dear to us. We take these things very, very seriously.
Yeah, a little too seriously.
You know, we got to keep Uncharted pristine, right? And it's like, if this movie is fun and cool, then we can take it or leave it, right? It's not going to ruin Uncharted if this movie's horrible. We still have those 4 games, right? So I don't know. I'm trying to have a different outlook on it.
Yeah, I mean, bad movies don't really ruin anything. Like even as as bad as every single Terminator sequel has been, like nobody thinks of Terminator 2 any less.
I was gonna say after
or,
Terminator 2, I was gonna say I was gonna be
right. That's what I'm saying. It's everybody loves Terminator 2 still. There's countless, even things like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, who have had pretty not fantastic movies. Those are still renowned series. Like it's almost like if there's a bad movie, then it just doesn't matter. It's almost like it never happened, kind of. So I don't think I'm worried about that.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I like your attitude, Dustin. I'm gonna go see it. In fact, it comes out the same day as I recall that Horizon comes out. So you can have a very PlayStation day where you can start playing at midnight, play for a few hours, go to bed, get up, go to a showing of Uncharted, come back, play more Horizon.
Cry.
So, and cry.
Yeah. Just a little bit, but that's normal scheduling.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'm interested to see how it does. Like there's a reality in which this becomes a series, but it's got to make its money. It costs $130 million to make this game or this movie. My feeling is that it won't make its money back, but we'll see.
So either.
And the math, I think, is that you have to really make 2 times your production, right, to really make your money back because of all the costs and marketing and all that.
Yeah, because marketing is usually about double the price of main production, which is crazy.
Let's go to Victor Cabrera, who says, "Hi, Colin, Chris, and Dustin. First time commenting and fan of your work, Colin." Thanks, Victor, for writing in. My apologies first, and my apologies first for my not so good grammar. Your grammar's fine. The question that I have is, have you ever wished you could take an IP and reinvent it? Personally, I would take the Driver series. Very confident that given the chance, I can reinvent that IP, fixing the gameplay as well as giving the Tanner versus Jericho a proper conclusion. I don't know what that means. After Driver 3 ended, I feel the story was lost because Driver San Francisco is not a proper sequel. Which IP would you reinvent and why? This is a fun question. I'm not going to answer it the way I would with the shit that you think I would say either. Let's go to you first, Dustin. Is there any IP that sticks out to you as something that you would reinvent? What could you do to save something you like or make something better? I guess answer it however you'd like to.
I feel like it's kind of just a gut reaction, but I always really loved, and I don't know, I'm trying to remember how you feel about these games, Colin, but the Mega Man Legends games on PlayStation 1
Volnut
and 2.
Mega Man? Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I like Mega Man Legends, but it's not. Dagan actually bought it for my birthday in 1998, I remember, when Tom Holland was 2.
Oh, damn. But I loved those 2 games growing up. I thought that the idea of like a more anime focused Mega Man third person action was really cool and intriguing, and those games were surprisingly story focused. What was the slide, Chris, from the live event? This is the way of the world Dustin wants.
Yeah.
Add anime and it's better. That's right. But I always liked that series. I was really sad when Mega Man Legends 3 was canceled.
Man, that was brutal.
Yeah. So I'd love to see it brought back. And, you could just reboot it at this point. You don't have to do Mega Man Legends 3 and update the controls, make it modern, because you cannot go back to those games now. Unfortunately, they just no longer hold up in any way. So I'll say that.
Yeah, Mega Man Legends was cool because it was the second spinoff we had gotten at that point. We hadn't gotten Battle Network or Star Force yet. We had like Mega Man Soccer, Battle and Chase wasn't even here and all that kind of stuff. So it was cool and it was different. And I liked the first one. It also gave us there was a sequel. It got ported to N64, I believe. That was Mega Man 64. And then there was the Tron Bon kind of spinoffs with the Surfbots.
Right.
They were in Marvel vs. Capcom. So they were trying to, and even Roll was in Marvel vs. Capcom, which was awesome. They really were trying to make a go of this. I agree with you that Mega Man Legends 3 was shocking because it wasn't as shocking as Mega Man Universe, which they canceled when it was done. And this was at a time, for people that don't know, when Keiji Inafune had left Capcom and they basically just canceled all of his games out of spite. and Mega Man Legends 3 was one of them. I was glad that it was canceled because it meant I didn't have to play the Nintendo 3DS, which was nice. But other than that, it would be cool to see. It would be nice to see Inafune come back and regain himself because he has not had a good go. outside of Capcom. Unlike the guys that left Konami, specifically with Kojima and Igarashi, both have had great success. While he is largely struck out, with the exception of Soul Sacrifice, I don't think he's really done much that's worthy of anything. Although he is my hero and he's been very nice to me. And when Keiji Inafune started knowing my name and who I was when I would see him, I was like, holy shit. Whoa. And I had him sign all sorts of stuff. Oh my God, of course I did. Unfortunately, he drew a big picture of Mega Man on the wall at IGN and they painted over it.
No.
All right. Let's see. Ari Levi wrote in, said, hey, CDC. I've been playing through my PS1 classics recently, and it got me thinking about the rumored Metal Gear Solid 1 remake. With seminal games like, really the remake is MGS3, but we'll talk about MGS1. With seminal games like Resident Evil 4, GTA 3, and Mass Effect 2 getting content cut by today's standards may be considered offensive to some, like Leon's flirting, the Confederate flag, Miranda's sweet cheeks. It was a shame they took out Miranda's sweet cheeks. Is it possible this trend will seep its way into the inevitable MGS remake? Snake's overt flirting with characters like Mei Ling, Snake entering a hypnotic state when transfixed on Meryl's ass, or even a security guard being stripped and put into, let's say, an unsavory position, all seems like inevitable targets for the chopping block. I find these to be a sign of the times and add to the quirky and perverted nature of Metal Gear, yet can't help but feel that they may get neutered if the game is remade, especially without Kojima at the helm, which I agree with there. How do you guys feel about this? Chris, let's go to you first. Metal Gear Solid is very sexualized. When I was playing MGS2 and especially MGS3, which I both played in the fall for Knockback, I was surprised by a few of the things in them, but it didn't, like the camera shots and all that kind of stuff, but it didn't really bother me. I do think it's a sign of the times, but I also think sexuality is acceptable. It doesn't mean that it's not for you. Like, I always talk about how prude I am. I don't like sexuality in fiction very much, just because I get it. Like, it's fade to black, brackets, whatever. I don't need to see a 5-minute sex scene. I don't need to see the humping and the shaking and all the awkwardness of a fucking sex scene. I don't like it. But that's just me. Clearly, there are plenty of people that do, because they're still around in all of the movies and TV shows and stuff we like. So why should games be immune to even unsavory or disrespectful representations of women if that's the intent? Maybe Snake is not a good guy. I don't know. I mean, so what do you think about this possibility of Metal Gear Solid being neutered?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely possible. The games that have done far less have been kind of cut up, and that's kind of I think it sucks. I think that it really bothers me that that's even a potential conversation that we're having, because there was a period of time not too long ago where we would have been having conversations about remakes, and this wouldn't have been a concern that they would be kind of on the warpath for things like this. I find it confusing that we have entire franchises based off of just the most insane violence, but a camera shot of, like, a suggestive camera shot is just too much. Like, it's very bizarre. It's very infantilizing to the audience as well, considering the fact that a lot of these moments are in games that are already rated for the audience age that's already, like, appropriate to be, like, it's not like you're not playing SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, and seeing, like, some gratuitous sex scene. It's always typically pretty appropriate for whatever game
I would like to
it's
see
in.
that, but
Even if it I just
Mr.
think
Krabs getting those cheeks clapped.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Jesus Christ. Whoa. I don't like that. My answer's
Did I
done.
ruin
That
that
just
for you?
threw
I'm
me off
sorry.
entirely. I forgot everything that I was saying because that image was so
Yeah, I
vivid.
understand. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Because I immediately remembered a scene from SpongeBob where Mr. Krabs' eyes are going, like, in and out of his own head. And
All
it's
right.
over.
It works.
It's over. It's done.
checks out.
Dustin, I'll try not to interrupt you as well.
Sure. It is. There's a double standard, no doubt. Think about shows like Game of Thrones or whatever, and you have characters that are, I don't know, much more. What's the right word? Sexually perverse than what Snake has done in Metal Gear.
Well, there are literally rapists.
Right.
You know what's messed up about that is I feel like if Game of Thrones was a video game, exactly as it was, all of the content as it was represented in a game from the PS2 era. If that game was remastered for the time that Game of Thrones was big here, those things would be removed because it's a game, even if it was rated M.
Indeed, I agree.
And that's irritating.
If Sony has any part, which it sounds like it most likely will be the case with this Metal Gear Solid remake, yeah, it's definitely getting censored. Remember, Sony censored an ass in Devil May Cry 5.
That's right.
Which they eventually they unpatched.
Oh, did they?
They got rid of the censor for the ass in Devil May Cry. So
interesting.
Yeah, I think that it'll definitely be changed, unfortunately. But I mean, it's one of those things where it's like it's a remake, so I don't know. It's not. It still sucks, but it's less bad than them going and changing the original source like they did with Resident Evil, in my opinion.
Agreed. Sorry, I was writing something down. For some reason, my notebook is like behind me.
You're right. SpongeBob.
Ash cheeks.
Rule 34.
Rule. All right. Mike Lee wrote in, perhaps the senator from Utah. I don't know. He says, "Hey, gents, I wanted to know what your thoughts on silent protagonists are. I can appreciate the purpose they serve as blank slates for player projection, but often they come across as flat and artificial. This is a big issue for me in the Persona games where the secondary casts are typically chatty and boisterous, yet your character just stands there expressionless 99% of the time. I've recently started playing Disco Elysium, and while the main character, Harry, also appears to be silent, he, along with nearly every other character in the game, are animated with such a vast range of detail and emotion. The fact that Harry never literally speaks is less than an afterthought. Colin, I know you're working on a JRPG, and while you may not want to divulge too much, I'm curious what your opinion on this is, at the very least." Well, yeah, I'll say that our role-playing game, our antagonist speaks. I feel like, guys, I have no problem with this as long as the game is choice-based, because I don't really know... I don't want to say I don't know how you do it. Otherwise, you can clearly do a choice-based game with plenty of dialogue, but it just makes sense when the only interactions you have are when you're making the exact choice. That's kind of the cool part about Fallout back in the day, and was Shepard would talk, right, in Mass Effect, and then sometimes you'd make a selection, but you always assumed when the push came to shove, every choice was really yours in Fallout, and that required almost silence to make that work, at least at the time. So I have no problem with it, but I also prefer there not being a silent protagonist. And I think that a good example of there not being a silent protagonist that could have potentially been one is Cloud in Final Fantasy VII. I think you could see that as being a silent protagonist, but he's not. And it's important to the story that we get to know him as more than the proxy by which we experience relationships with others. It's got to be more than that. So I think it goes both ways. What do you think, Dustin?
I think it depends purely on the situation. It made sense for Fallout 3, and I think the way that they added voices in Fallout 4 may not have been the right way to do it. So I think I would have, in that situation for Fallout 4, I would have preferred a no voice. But in other games, like, I think it's time to give Link a voice. Is that crazy? I felt like in Breath of the Wild, they had full voice acting for all the characters, including Zelda. And then Link, who just doesn't say anything. It felt weird to me. It's time. Give Link a voice. But I don't know. It really, I think, depends on a game by game for me. I'm thinking specifically the game that's closest to me in this case is Persona. I was thinking, would Persona benefit from the main character being more of a character? And
instead, he just kind of emotes. Like it's nice in Persona 4 because you do something and then it's like bling, and it's like your expression increased or whatever. But it's like we don't really know how that happened.
Right.
We just know it did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Part of me wonders if Persona could benefit from a more Mass Effect style where there is a character, but you're kind of guiding them in different directions. I don't know if that would be better or worse.
What do you think, Chris?
I like silent protagonists. I don't think they fit in everything. Obviously, you can't have The Last of Us with a silent protagonist. That would be really awkward and really confusing. But I think it works more often than I think it doesn't. I think, especially in games like Fallout and in games where there's a lot of choice, I find personally that the lack of a voice in games like Fallout is a lot more immersive to me, because then it's just me. It's me reading, like, and you get more dialogue options because you don't have to record as many lines. You're not limited by the actual amount of time that you have to record a main character for. So that is a big thing for Fallout. For FPSs, I think it's wildly distracting sometimes when the main character speaks during gameplay, at least. In cutscenes, it's a different thing. I think my ideal character is one that doesn't necessarily talk during gameplay, but when story is happening, they can do what they're supposed to do. Because the whole point of a silent protagonist is to be transported into the viewpoint or the shoes of that character. And theoretically, whatever you would think to say is what you say. It's not represented in the game. There's a little bit of imagination there's a bit of weight that your imagination is pulling in that sense. But I think that's like a fun part of video games is letting your imagination kind of take you into these places and kind of, I've said this before with little things like animations in first-person games, where I don't like when in a first-person game I have to open a door and my character has to, like, there's like an animation that plays and it's like this really detailed animation, like, oh, it's a hand going up to a button, and it's like, I prefer it when it's Borderlands style, when you open a crate and you just click a button and it opens, because then you can express yourself in any number of ways. You can like hit it and press it at the same time, and that's like the way your character opens a box or whatever. I think there's a level of player agency that is robbed from you when those animations are in place, and there's an element of player agency that's robbed from you when a character that doesn't necessarily benefit from a voice is given a voice for no other reason than, oh, the production value dictates that he must have a voice. It's a complicated conversation though, because any number of games can do this poorly or well, and there's not necessarily a blueprint for them. It just it really is a game by game basis.
I agree. I don't like the idea of writing a game personally that had someone just not the silent comes with the need for the player to be the proxy. I like first party or first person games like that, but I like playing a character. When you're playing as Final Fantasy VII, Cloud is the main character, but you're not Cloud, right? And I think that's cool, because you're experiencing his story firsthand.
No,
right.
For sure, yeah. It's different. One thing that I've been playing recently, Metro Exodus, I really love that game because that's a silent protagonist, but your character speaks in the loading screens. He has like he has a diary
cool.
where he's explaining kind of how he feels after everything, and it's kind of an interesting way to get around the silent protagonist while actually like having a character that is real and has opinions on things, and it is a really cool way of justifying that to the universe, because it's all right, I'm silent because I have to keep focused and I have to do what I have to do, but then when the lights go down and I'm at the end of my day, I'm just gonna let it all out. And I thought that was like a really interesting way for Metro to do it, and that really stuck out to me when I was playing Metro.
That game is, I bought it. I mean, I have it. I don't know when I'm going to get to it. I really love.
It's a very long intro.
The first two Metros a lot. Yeah, I know it's a lot different than the other ones too. Like, I feel like I platinumed the first two Metros. I loved them, but I don't know. I haven't gotten to the third one yet. VRG wrote in and said, "Hey guys, what game that is slated for 2022 do you think has the biggest potential to be a disappointment? Of course, for a game to be a disappointment, it must be highly anticipated, like Elden Ring or the sequel to The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Stalker 2 would be my answer personally. Hope you are having a middling new year. Thanks. That's nice of you to say." Dustin, what 2022 release has the potential to be the biggest disappointment? I have two good answers here. I feel like you might use one of them, so I'm curious what you say.
I guess it depends on the term anticipated, because like a gut one for me is, I feel like Ghostwire Tokyo.
Oh, interesting.
Has just from the studio is kind of not that the Evil Within 1 and 2 were bad games, but they weren't fantastic games. This might be a bit of a wild card, but he's asking about potential to be disappointing. And I guess potential and expectation are two different things in my mind here. And I'm going to say God of War Ragnarok, because of how similar it looked to the last one. And by disappointing, I mean not that it's bad, but I think it's possible we play God of War Ragnarok and be like, it was good, it was fun. It was more of the last game and a completion, but it didn't break new barriers. It didn't raise up the ante for graphics like the last one did. It was just kind of what we expected. And for me, from that IP, that would be a disappointment.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
What do you think, Chris?
Let me make sure Maddie's not behind me. I think Starfield probably.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Starfield has a lot of potential because it's
weird.
weird.
The Xbox Studios.
Well, potential, you know. No, I think it's weird. Starfield's a bigger thing than I think people give it credit for, because we all like to beat up on Bethesda. We like to pretend, Skyrim, but it's a game that people keep buying. It's a game that people keep buying because it's a good game.
Yeah.
Skyrim's good. Like, I know that it's a big punching bag, but that's a good ass game. And the potential of Skyrim in space is pretty exciting, especially when you consider the fact that they're going to be unencumbered budgetarily. They're going to have Microsoft's entire budget behind them, which in my mind has always been the thing holding back even some of my favorite Bethesda games, is just the lack of polish. And you could tell where things were, we can't cast this. We have 3 people in the voice cast for Skyrim because that's what we have to do. And the thought of having something as special as Skyrim again, but with the no budgetary limitations, is very exciting. But also you have to take into account how often that studio has kind of fumbled the bag a little bit, especially with 76 recently. Even you could argue with Fallout 3 and Skyrim just as base games, some of the potential that they were missing, and some of what other studios have done with those IPs, specifically Fallout New Vegas, which kind of showed up a lot of the original team, with Fallout 4 and 3 not even being as well loved as that game. Although I've heard very good things about Far Harbor. I've never played it. I think this is something that I'm cautiously optimistic for, because I think it could be really cool. But caveat to that is it could fall flat on its face, and that would be really, really, that would be very disappointing. The follow-up to the first proper follow-up to like Skyrim and Fallout 4 being disappointing, that would suck. That would be like a massive, especially because it's been so long since we've had a single player Bethesda Game Studios game. If that's a disappointment, that's
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
flavor is bad right now after Fallout 76, so I think people are looking forward to something. I agree with the choices, because I think that these are games that have dramatic, especially with Starfield, dramatic expectations, and therefore if they don't meet them, it's going to be disappointing. My answers are maybe a little more unfair, particularly one of them. One game I have to say is Forspoken. I don't think I just don't think, no, I don't think so. The bigger one that I wanted to bring up, though, is Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. Got a weird feeling about this one. And I don't know if it feels like Final Fantasy Type 0 meets Final Fantasy 15, and I don't know if that's good. And I don't know if broing up Final Fantasy 1 like this is a good look. Final Fantasy 1 is so iconic and interesting. It's not like, it's an important story, but it's the start of everything. And I want to play this. It comes out March 18th. Obviously, Forspoken comes out in May, I believe. I'm going to play Final Fantasy Origin. I don't think I'm going to even bother with Forspoken, but I am curious. Team Ninja's good, but really good. There's just something weird about that game. So that was my choice, specifically with Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. And then finally, I'll answer this one quick. Your boy Nikki the Fifth, Nikki V, of course. He says, "Hey, silly Chris, Cumstain, Dustain, and 1-800-ALL-COCK Colin. Colin, a few weeks back, you mentioned that pre-Xbox 360 and PS3 developers had to get their releases right the first time around, as they didn't have the luxury of patching it down the line. It's got me wondering, can you think of any high-profile examples where a game from the 80s, 90s, or early 2000s launched with game-breaking bugs? If so, how is it addressed?" The one I always like to bring up is actually the Wii game, Metroid Other M. I always love bringing that one up. Yeah. That's the most recent example, and maybe the last notable example of there being a physical release that was fucked. And that was a Team Ninja game, ironically. But I feel like people might not know what they had to do to get it fixed, and that's the best part of the story. So what ended up happening was there was this bug where if you went into this room and then you backed out and then went into it again, you were locked into it or something like that. So what people had to do is take their saves off their Wii, put them on an SD card, and mail them physically to Nintendo. Nintendo would then do something to them, whatever, give them a new save or copy their save and fix it and send it back to them. And then they'd have to re-upload that save to the Wii because they could not patch the game. Like it was not possible to patch Wii games. So that's the example that came to mind for me, your boy Nicky the Fifth.
Colin,
yeah.
I did a quick Google search. I wonder if you've ever heard of this because it's blowing my mind. The PlayStation Holiday 2004 demo disc, which apparently when you played Beautiful Joe 2, it could freeze and corrupt your entire memory card.
Oh, nice. No, I don't remember that at all. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Imagine
that's what you get,
a demo
that's what you get
disc
for trying to get that GameCube game on your console.
That's right.
Yeah.
The thing I always think of is with Myth 2, which was a Bungie game before, like in 1998. That game had a game-breaking bug where I think if you tried to save it, or there was something that you had to do in the game, but it would corrupt your entire computer. It would like delete everything off of your computer. And it was like such a massively expensive blunder that they had to recall thousands and thousands of copies to the point where I put them in the hole enough where they were open to being bought by Microsoft in the first place.
Very interesting.
So
very interesting.
That's one that I have in my memory banks.
Oh, good pull.
I don't remember what you had to do to brick the game though. I wish I could remember.
I could. The one game I could repeatedly brick in a complicated way was New Vegas. I've said this story in the past that there was a game breaking bug that I reported to Obsidian that they fixed. Which was there was a cowboy hat in the game, and if you entered the strip with the cowboy hat and then didn't have it equipped after that, the game would just freeze. And the problem was that the hat could be destroyed. Like you could take enough damage where the hat would be destroyed, which would break the game forever. And so it was like a devastating bug. And that was the last one I remember encountering. I was like, what is this that I kept encountering almost like a QA guy? And it just goes to, what? Did you find it?
Oh my god, yeah. So if the game wasn't installed to the default directory instead of, but if you uninstalled the game, it would delete all of your stuff on your entire hard drive. So if you were like, I don't want Myth 2 anymore, it was just like, fuck
your computer.
Fuck your computer. You don't have anything now. Deal with it. That's crazy. I forgot it was an uninstall.
Boys, it's time to go. There's no more for this episode of Sacred Symbols of PlayStation Podcast. Chris, do you have any thoughts before we go? Any closing comments?
Not there. There's one thing, only because I was thinking about Victor's question for a while about an IP to reinvent, and I didn't have an answer when it came up. But I think Destroy All Humans, I would do. I'd want to do that. I would want to make that the real Mars Attacks of video games.
Oh yeah, we didn't really even get into that. We got distracted on that one.
Fill it with all these ridiculous actors that are there for no reason other than for you to kill as an alien.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah,
I would love.
Yeah, sorry,
that.
Victor, we got distracted. I think we started talking about Mega Man Legends at that point, which is more interesting anyway than Driver.
Yeah, I didn't have an answer until now.
Dustin, closing comments.
No, good to be back. Thanks everybody for coming back. Hope you had a good holiday break. And man, I'm just excited. We didn't do any kind of big announcement, big reveal thing this year, of here's all the new stuff we're doing. But I feel like it is kind of, I don't know, maybe not behind the scenes happening, but all the different stuff with Sacred Symbols Plus, the new merch opportunities. I mean, we've already publicly said about working on live event related stuff this year.
We'll see you in the coming months. I think we're going to see you multiple times this year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's exciting.
It's fun. We're good. I think it's good to be back. It's good to kind of get back into the swing of things because it was funny when I actually recorded the first podcast I recorded this year was with Dagan. And I technically recorded with Vince first, but that doesn't really count. I mean, that was just a conversation, but I was telling him when we were talking about aliens, it was just weird. I was like, I don't really know how to do this right now. And taking notes when I was watching the movie, I was like, wow, it's been like 4 weeks since I've done any of this, but it's good to be back into the swing of things. And we obviously love doing the show and we love all of you out there. Thank you for supporting us on Last Stand's patreon.com/laststandmedia, early ad-free access. Of course, listen to Knockback, our retro and nostalgia podcast, Defining Duke, our Xbox podcast as well. You can find us on YouTube, come join us on Discord, etc. and so on. Until next time, be good. Goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.